All right, everybody. Welcome, welcome. The people just trickling in. One moment, Mama Yad. We're just starting. It might just take us a minute, and I'll bring you up in just a moment. I just got to finish setting some stuff up, okay? Yeah, we're a few minutes early. All right, let us, let me just make sure that everything's good to go. Oh, yeah, there's one more thing I have to do. Hey, we should be good to go. All right, let's bring up Mama Yad. Mama Yad, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Mama Yad, how old are you?
I'm 18.
All right, and how old do you think the Earth is?
Like 4 billion something.
And why'd you join?
I just felt like it.
Okay, goodbye. It's weird. Do you have a video debunking the population growth argument from creationists? I don't, but I think Alvaro Robledo Lopez does. He's a mutual of mine and a friend, and he's a mathematician, and I think that he's done that one. But I haven't, because there's not much to it. It's just wrong, and you know, it's not a particularly interesting video. All right, well, we did just start, so make sure that if you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you hit the like button, you smash that like button, slam that subscribe thing, and then send the, I don't know, ring the bell, all these things that you should do. If you're watching on TikTok, make sure to tap the screen. It gets more people in here so we can get more conversations going. Howdy, howdy, everybody. Yeah, demolish the bell. What gas is burning on the sun? The sun isn't burning gas. It's an ionized plasma, and is not burning, rather it's heated by nuclear fusion. Dr. Blitz, how can I read some of the papers you published? Well, I try to keep my academic side separate from my social media, outreach, science communication, debate side, just because people can be cruel and, you know, death threats are not fun. However, if you really want to, if you're super motivated to, there is a Patreon tier that is exceedingly, extremely expensive, and it gives you access to all of my research, and it also gets you recognized and acknowledged in all my future papers that I write while you are a subscriber or a member or whatever. So you can think of it as being like a medieval style Patreon, where, you know, you give money to scientists and then the scientists thank you in their work, right? I already have one such person, not expecting anybody else will join. But if you really want access to my papers and, you know, private Q&As 3-4 times a year, that's an option. Think of it like a private grant. Anyway, let's bring up our next guest, Cabasso. Cabasso, how's it going?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing A-okay. Cabasso, how old do you think the Earth is?
I'm good. Yeah, I had a
Cabasso, your microphone, it sounds like you're 2.5 miles away and under a pile of pillows. Could you get closer to your mic or speak up a little bit?
Yeah, can you get me now?
Oh, that's so much better. Thank you.
All right. So, do you want to be proven that there's God?
I want you to prove that the Earth is 6,000 years old if you can.
No, I want to prove to you that there's God.
Well, do you think that the Earth, how old do you think that the Earth is?
The Earth is 6 years old, yes. That's true.
The Earth is 6 years old? Also, your microphone is still really bad.
6,000.
Sorry, one more time?
Let me get it well. I'll come back. Let me get it well.
Okay, sounds good. Yes, you heard him right. The Earth is 6 years old. All right, let's talk to Tell Me You're Proud. Tell me you're proud. How's it
Hello.
going?
I'm doing good. I'm not really religious, but I did have this question, bro. My friend was telling me about this. Like, I think it's called the Shroud of Jesus. Like, got like a picture of like Jesus on this like cloth.
So,
like, what do you think about that?
So there's good research that demonstrates that it's almost certainly fake. In fact, we know that the first people who found it admitted that it was fake. Like it was discovered in the late 1200s, I think, or maybe the early 1300s. Basically, some guy brought it to his church. The church is like, this is weird. We should show it to the local bishop. They brought it to the local bishop, who then sent it to the Pope. The Pope did some investigating and got a confession out of somebody who faked it. Like it's literally a forgery, and this was written about as a forgery like 700 years ago, and carbon dating shows that it was made like 700 years ago. So I mean, it's a forgery. It's not real.
Damn, that is crazy.
Yeah. All right, let's bring up our next guest. Toe Muncher. What a name. Toe Muncher. No, they're not here yet. Toe Muncher, how's it going? Oh no, we can't do that. That'll get us demonetized. Yeah, that'll absolutely get us demonetized. We gotta be careful. I mean, if it's just a guy playing banjo, it's fine. I was just really hoping it was just a guy playing his banjo on stream, in which case it would have been fine. I'm waiting for We Are Charlie Kirk. That's funny. Of course it was a troll, but who doesn't like the banjo? It could have been an acoustic guitar. Who knows? I've played banjo for this guy like 10 times. Yes, you have. Look, I don't remember who's who. I don't remember who does these things. You think I know these things? You think I keep track of y'all? Maybe I should. All right, remember that, so we're currently 8 minutes in. We'll give it another few minutes before we try changing topics. But this topic, that was a guitar, okay. This topic seems like it might be losing steam. People might not be interested in talking about this topic anymore. So we might phase it out if we can't get people to talk about it. So we'll give it a bit, see if anybody comes on. Otherwise, we will try another topic, yeah. In the meantime, I'm happy to answer questions from chat. What did my church lie about? Because they attributed a lot to it. Well, look, if your church told you that the earth is 6,000 years old, then your church lied. Not all churches do this. Some do, though. Famously, like huge televangelists, pastors at these megachurches often do. Toe Muncher, no, you can't come back. You cannot come back. What's a topic you're willing to debate, but you're not confident in? I mean, there are a lot of topics. Like generally, like I'm generally willing to debate literally anything, but doesn't mean I shouldn't in public. Harith, I believe that we've spoken before. Have we spoken about this topic before together?
No, we haven't.
Okay, so how old do you think the Earth is?
Here. Oh, I believe in an ancient Earth. I don't know exactly how old because, well, that's why I'm here. Because, so basically, when we do this, uranium, lead, and potassium, argon dating, how do we know 100% that that's accurate? Because that's a lot of assumption and assertion involved when
but you don't think it's 6,000 years old, right?
Oh no. I don't believe it's 6,000 years old.
But you don't trust the uranium lead dating. You don't trust potassium argon dating.
It's not about trust. No, I do trust. For example, I do trust argon, but argon nitrogen carbon dating. because the parent-daughter relation there is accurate, because what they do, they have a lot of methods. For example, the tree, the rings in the tree, so they can prove that to you. But uranium lead, can you prove to me that? Is there? Are you sure that there's no assumption involved there?
I mean, look, so the entirety of the scientific consensus on like a lot of things is an entire framework. And so there's a lot of parts that go into that framework. Like, for example, we need to, like when we're trying to date a zircon crystal, we need to assume that it had minimal to no lead in it when it formed. But we have good reason to think that it's not merely an assumption, because we understand the chemistry of zircon crystals, and we understand the electronegativity of a zirconium atom versus a uranium atom versus a lead atom. And that electronegativity enforces this assumption. It allows this assumption to be reasonable. Similarly, we have assumptions that, you know, the decay rate of a uranium atom into lead is, well, it passes through a lot of things, but it ends up at lead, is like some fixed number. And you might think that that's an assumption, but that assumption is backed up by the entirety of quantum mechanics.
But see that, even there, sorry that I interrupted you. Do you want to continue, because I have a comment there?
I mean, that's roughly it. Like, I could talk about what the evidence is for quantum mechanics and how we know it's true, but that's roughly it.
So look, for example, how do we know, for example, that throughout history, all the consistency the rate has always been consistent?
Yeah, so if it wasn't, then that means that we would no longer have reason to trust quantum mechanics. But we do have reason to trust quantum mechanics because we can go look out at the sky and we can see that the phenomena that are inevitably quantum in nature, things like the emission spectrum of hydrogen atoms, for example, those are the same when we look at galaxies that are billions of years, or that are billions of light years away, which means that we're seeing them as they were billions of years ago. So we can check that quantum mechanics must have been correct billions of years ago as well. And so we would have reason then to trust the consequences of quantum mechanics. That leads us to the conclusion that decay rates, for example, are constants of nature.
Okay, yeah, but there's a lot of these little things. So, for example, also the daughter isotopes. How do we know that, you know, how much of the daughter isotopes were there? This is just a question. Where can I read more about this? Because I'm very interested in this, you know, in dating.
So there's kind of two sides. So I think that if you probably wanted to learn about like the actual mechanism that's done, like the actual procedures, you'd probably have to go look in like a geology textbook or like a geochronology textbook. However, if you want to learn about like the basics of radioactive decay, which is probably what you're looking for, because that's kind of the bedrock, the bedrock foundation of how the whole thing works, it's probably a good idea to like pick up a nuclear physics textbook, and there will probably be some background that you need, but I imagine that probably in the preface of the book it'll tell you what you need to know before you understand the book.
Yeah. Also, you know, some of the half-lives of them is like 20 billion, like even more. The age.
I mean, so, yeah.
The half-life of that is like 20 billion. Like, yeah. So can you explain that a little bit as well?
Yeah. I mean, so the thing is a half-life is a number that basically tells you how long it'll take before half of the stuff decays away. But it also tells you, based off of the half-life, you can also predict how long it'll take for a quarter of it to decay away, or for an eighth of it to decay away, right? And so, in fact, the half-life tells you if you have a certain amount of the substance, how frequently you can expect a single decay to happen. And so what you can do is you can just get a Geiger counter and stick it in front of a large sample, like a big block of, you know, what's the bismuth, for example. Bismuth is metastable, has a very, very long half-life. You can just take a Geiger counter, stick it in front of a big block of bismuth, and just count how frequently you get a radioactive decay. And then you can use that to determine the half-life.
Exactly. So there is one, I think even one of them is, I think it's up to trillions.
Yeah, that's bismuth.
Of that is to trillions 4. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, but just like I said before, you know,
it's bismuth 209, I guess. I mean, it's not ridiculous. The thing is we can calculate these things. I mean,
yeah,
like, you know, there's a reason why we have numbers for these, and it's not because it's just a random assumption.
Oh, no, that I get. But, you know, carbon dating for carbon-14, for example, that they can prove it to you, so 100%. I think it's 5,730, if I'm not mistaken.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So that one, 100%, I believe it. But as for the others, I remain skeptical. But I'm very willing to read more about them.
Yeah. So look,
Another question I have.
Just be clear before we move on, and then I should probably let you go because we're not really. This isn't really on topic. I'm happy to talk about it, but so just to be clear, you understand that like if you have say a kilogram of something, then and you measure that with like a Geiger counter, you know, just a little radiation detector that makes a click every time it picks up a radiation. If you measure how frequently you get a decay, a single atom decaying, that you can use that to calculate the half-life, right?
Yeah.
Okay, as long as we agree on that, then the intuition should follow then that even for something with an extremely long half-life, if you have enough of it, you can measure radioactive decay, individual radioactive decays, which will then allow you to calculate how long the half-life is.
Yeah. Just one very quick one, okay?
Yeah,
you
sure.
know, with because I think you talked with flat earthers. I'm not a flat earther. I believe in global Earth. But I found something very, very interesting. You know, Einstein's relativity. If you do a rework with the maths there, with Tychonic model, you know, geocentrism works very, you know, just as fine.
So geocentrism is not the same as flat Earth. That's the mistake that flat earthers make. So Einstein's relativity says, yeah, you could work in a geocentric reference frame. You could use a coordinate system that centers on the Earth, and even on the Earth not spinning. It's just you introduce a whole bunch of fictitious forces when you do so, and you still don't get a flat Earth.
Exactly, just the absolute loss. I promise I'll go down after this. You know, the octupole, dipole, and quadrupole poles. Anything new about that? Any updates?
I haven't seen anything new about I haven't seen anything new about the CMB multiple moments.
Going around and asking people, nobody knows. I mean, this is very interesting to me.
Well, no, I mean, people do know, but like,
I want to see updates on that.
I'm sure people do know. I just haven't followed it, and like, it's not really considered like an enormous problem. So like, it's not like the most important thing that people are studying. But anyway, Harith, I'm going to let you go because I do have another guest, but thank you for being here. All right, let's talk to Haiku. And then if Haiku's not on topic, we'll just change topics. It's fine. Haiku, how's it going?
What's up, man? I'm getting double of you.
Do you want to leave and rejoin?
No, I think you're fine.
Okay, so Haiku, how old do you think the Earth is?
I think it's probably as old as science dictates it to be. But
okay, but then why'd you join?
We should get into. Well, I want to talk to you about sort of scripture, not so much scripture, but like the avenue that scripture creates to dictate people in the world. Do you think it's valuable that people have stories that they can believe in and it guides them?
It's kind of not on topic, so I'm going to let you go, Haiku. Sorry, one sec, y'all. Got to take care of something. And then it's Daniel. We can talk to Daniel again. One sec. We'll bring up Daniel in just a moment. I just got to take care of something. Okay, let's bring up Daniel. Daniel, how old do you think the Earth is?
Good morning, Dr. Blitz. Huh?
How old do you think the Earth is?
I agree with you on that statement. I don't agree with you with your background picture, though.
Oh. Well, I'm a little bit confused now because the background picture is just a description of the evolution of the universe through time. You don't agree with that, but you also think that the universe isn't 6,000 years old. So where's the contention?
I agree with everything except for the fact that you're putting a picture behind you that has some holes in it now.
Yeah, this picture is like 5 years old. It's still basic. It's still consensus, by the way.
It is consensus, but I'm saying I wanted to hear your thoughts on the fact that we are finding stars that are older than what they should be.
Oh, no, we're not.
Huh?
What's the star that we found that's older than they should be?
Galaxies have been formed earlier than
I thought we were
thought
talking about stars. Oh, okay. So
stars are in galaxies.
Right. But the stars formed long before galaxies did, and we haven't found any stars that are, 13.798 billion years old. But the point is yes, we've found galaxies that are more structured than we thought they should be, but we thought they should be less structured based off of our understanding of how galaxies evolve in the modern era. So all that means is that James Webb did what we expected it to do, namely, it taught us more about galaxy evolution in the early universe.
Okay, does this cause an issue with the Dark Ages length of time?
Perhaps. I mean, by Dark Ages, you just mean before stars? Because no, not really. If by Dark Ages you mean before structured galaxies, then sure. But like,
okay, so what I'm trying to get at is that we have this cosmic microwave background, right?
mm-hmm.
And we see that as 13.8 billion years or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that because of its uniform temperature, it gives clues to a hot plasma beginning state. Am I correct so far?
Mm-hmm.
We say there's a time. Is there a time in science that says from that cosmic microwave, you need this much amount of time to form a star?
The models that we have suggest that it takes like at least 10 million years or so before stars form.
Oh, that little.
And those stars would only last a few million years, yeah.
And then galaxies is what we broke.
Yeah. We just didn't really understand galaxy formation, at least early universe galaxy formation. That said, we weren't so far off. The initial observations of these universe-breaking galaxies, they were based on simple images rather than spectrographic data. When we got spectrographic data back, we found out that the assumptions put in based on the images about their age and their size and their mass were wrong. So we weren't that far off. There is a little bit more that we had to learn. Like we learned that the distribution of stellar masses in early galaxies is slightly different from the distribution of stellar masses in later galaxies, but it's not that different.
Okay. So at a point, you do believe that like our understanding of science can be continually changing, right? Like
absolutely
saying that we got it wrong, right?
Yeah, well, generally what ends up happening is that you have some model that works really well in some range of, observations.
Mm-hmm.
Like let's take Newton, right? So Newton's observations were based on things on Earth and then the planets in the solar system, right? And so his observations, they work absolutely stupendously well on Earth and in the solar system in general, to the degree of accuracy that he can measure with. And he made a reasonable assumption that like, it works on Earth in the solar system. I guess it works everywhere. So generally,
he did know that there was he was missing a little bit. Like he couldn't make it. He knew that he was off by a little bit, right?
I don't think he did.
Missing something?
The precession of Mercury stuff, I don't think that was discovered until after his time. But anyway, the point is that he made a reasonable assumption that in all of the cases that he observed, it worked. And so it was reasonable to assume it always worked. Now, this is a thing that scientists often do. Given the data that they have, they extrapolate as broadly as they can. But that's often where the mistakes come in, the continued extrapolation to spaces where you haven't made observations. So in the case of galaxy formation, what happened with James Webb is that prior to James Webb, we had Hubble. And with Hubble, we made certain observations about galaxy formation. And we said, up until 10 billion years ago, galaxies always evolve in this way. And so we can reasonably say that, this must be how galaxies always evolve. But it's that generalization that gets filled in with new data, that gets filled in and gets improved upon. It's the same way with Newton that happened with black holes. Like Newton was completely wrong about how gravity works for extremely massive things. But he didn't have that information. So that's the place where the science was wrong. But the science wasn't wrong for, dropping a pen on Earth. That was correct. The science wasn't wrong for galaxy formation 5 billion years ago. That was correct. It's just when we get new information in regions that we didn't have before, we expect that our models should change in a way that doesn't change what we currently have, but adjust to include the new data. And I don't know if that's wrong or if that's just like getting wider.
So I feel like saying what you said, we have distinct observations of the cosmic microwave background, but we are really inferring what created that. Are we not?
we're inferring what created the cosmic microwave background.
Yeah, we say that.
I mean,
okay, based
generally
off of the
science is
temperature, the
inference.
uniformity, and all of this stuff, that it relates to a hot plasma state.
Right.
at the
I mean, that's
beginning.
not the only reason why we think that you have an early hot dense state 13.8 billion years ago. It's not just the CMB.
Yeah, but we have a lot of, but we can't see anything. We can't observe anything past that. So everything that we're,
I mean, okay, so it depends.
thinking-
I mean, like in some sense, like we can observe baryon acoustic oscillations, which are past that, but these are not like, it's not like individual, it's not like a thing giving off light, but rather it's like a structure that we can like see in the universe. And similarly, like there's like we can see the history of Big Bang nucleosynthesis by looking at the ratio of hydrogen to helium in the universe.
but no,
But
whoa,
like
whoa, whoa.
those are like observations. It's not like literally seeing.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So what we're doing is we're saying if we had a hot plasma dense state, we would get this amount of hydrogen in the clouds, this amount of helium or whatever. So it matches. We make up something and then we go, this matches what we're seeing. Like it would work, kind of thing. But at the end of the day, past that cosmic inflation and the CMB, we're really kind of just saying what we see today, what can we match that with that we can create ourselves behind it?
So you're just complaining about the entire scientific process? Because the entire scientific process is, we have some observation, let's come up with a hypothesis that matches that observation, and then we'll try to test that observation and see if it makes correct, or sorry, test that hypothesis to see if it makes correct conclusions. And then if it makes correct conclusions, then we say, yay, our hypothesis has evidence for it. And if it doesn't make correct conclusions, we go back and we either modify it or we start over at the drawing, or we start from square one. Right? That's the whole scientific business.
Yeah,
So
listen,
that's
it's fine.
That's what we're doing. That's what we're talking about.
My issue is that the amount of like belief and saying that like because this kind of fits or whatever, we have to realize that at the end of the day, yes, the evidence fits whatever you made up, but it's still made up.
So your complaint is just that the way that we come to conclusions in science is forming a hypothesis and then testing the hypothesis?
I have no problem with the way things are done.
Okay.
But once you come to a theory or a resolution, you have to say that this made up scenario.
All ideas are made
works.
up. Wait, what? All ideas are made up.
No, they're not all made up.
Literally all ideas are made up. That's what ideas are. They're produced by the human brain, right?
There's a difference between having a hypothesis on Earth that's testable and verifiable like thing, and then testing something that is not like you can't.
What do you think people do when they make a prediction using a model and then verify that prediction by observation or by experiment? That's what is done, and that's why we think that the Big Bang happened. That's why that's consensus.
Like when someone was talking about an atom and made a theory about it, whatever. When we got to see the atom, that was confirmed. Like, okay, we have. It was
confirmed way before that.
No, see, that's the thing. But until it's seen, it's not confirmed.
Really? Is that what you think?
Yeah, that's why it's called the Big Bang Theory, right?
No, that's not why it's called the Big Bang Theory.
Why is it?
Theory doesn't mean guess. Theory is not as opposed to fact.
Yeah.
I think you're a little bit confused about what a theory is. A theory is a type of scientific explanation. It has a mathematical component and it has an interpretive component, and then it's tested with data. That's what a theory is. It has nothing to do with whether it's true, false, a guess, not a guess, observed, what like.
So, but there's a difference between the speed of light is this constant that's measurable and the theory of relativity, let's say. There's a difference.
Well, it's a category difference, right? A theory is much larger than a single observation or a single fact.
What I just feel like in the community, theories have
in what community
hold too much weight and are not explained to the fact of the guessing it is.
So
like the nature of the
that might be a valid critique if you were in the community, but you're not. So I don't think that you really know what you're talking about. Well, no, I mean you said in the community, but you're not a part of that community. You're not familiar with that community. So like why?
Okay, how they portray it to the layman? How about that?
The reason why they're portrayed to the layman. Well, okay. So by the way, I do have some contentions about the way some things are portrayed to the layman because it's not particularly accurate. But the way that,
We
for
don't have to
example, the
disagree
Big
here.
Bang,
We can agree on some things. It's
the
not
reason
horrible
why the Big Bang is portrayed as like being a thing that actually happened is because the evidence for it is overwhelming.
the evidence for it is overwhelming because we set the initial conditions.
We didn't do anything. We produced a
we made
hypothesis,
up
and then
the
we
initial
checked that the hypothesis is true.
Yeah,
We
but
verified
still
it.
made up. So there's an infinitely other.
We made
there's
up
an
atoms,
infinite
too.
amount of other initial conditions that probably could explain the same thing.
There's an infinite amount of other explanations for how atoms work that could have explained the same thing. But we still think that atoms work in a certain way because that's what the data says, and that's not made up.
I think
What
you
do
were
you
on.
think? What do you think is the difference between? So how do you think that we see atoms? What do you think we actually do?
There's a microscope.
You can't see atoms with optics.
Not
Can't
inside
use
an
light.
atom.
You can't see. No, you can't see. You can't see atoms with light.
That's electrons, though.
Yeah, electrons are not light. It's an
You
electron.
can't see electrons. The waves.
Right, you're right. You cannot see electrons.
Yeah.
And so the way that we see atoms is with an electron microscope. You understand that?
Not fully, but
Okay,
I do
let me
understand.
explain then, because we don't actually see atoms. So what we do is we take basically a beam of electrons, and then we shoot them at like something, and those electrons bounce off in particular ways, and then we produce an image based off of the way those electrons bounced off of the thing.
That's pretty good. That's good enough for me. That's like a LiDAR system, right?
Yeah, except we're not actually seeing them, and there could have been a million possible explanations for why the electrons bounce that way, without it actually being, you know, atoms made of protons and electrons and neutrons and all of this stuff, right? Like, there could have been a million possible explanations, but for some reason you accept this, and you don't accept the Big Bang.
No,
Or rather, you think that the atoms are not a
bouncing off
guess, but the
something.
Big Bang is a guess.
It's bouncing off something.
How do you know? There could be an alternative explanation.
Give me an alternative.
Yeah, that metals just have metals just don't like electrons, and so the electrons are just afraid of it.
Oh, and it's a repelling force, you're saying?
No, it's not a force. Electrons are just afraid of it. They just turn around.
Oh man.
I mean,
Okay,
look,
I
do you have any explanation, any alternative explanation for why we see the hydrogen to helium ratio of 3:1? Why we see a Big Bang, or I shouldn't say Big Bang, an afterglow of something that looks like it came from something very, very hot about 13.8 billion years ago? Why we see large-scale structure of the universe in the way that we do, in particular the baryon acoustic oscillations? Why
I
we
think
see,
someone
like, do
looked at
you
all
have
the
an
data that we
explanation
can
for?
see
Do you have an
and work
alternative,
backwards.
guess for why that happened?
I don't have an alternative guess, but I know how they created it. They looked at the fucking conditions that we're in right, like that we see, and then worked backwards to what's plausible that could create.
It's actually not how it was created.
What?
It did not rely on the cosmic microwave background radiation. In 1929, I think, it was either 29 or 27, we have Georges Lemaitre, who was a Belgian physicist and priest. He looked at Einstein's equations, and then he looked at the observations made by Fritz Zwicky. I'm sorry, I think it was by Hubble, actually. Fritz Zwicky came later. And
Was it in the 40s or something?
This was in the 20s. This was in the 20s.
40s is when it was kind of generally.
No, I'm getting there. So in the 20s, you have Georges Lemaitre, who takes this observation made by Hubble that these distant nebula seem to be moving away from us very quickly. They seem to be redshifted, and he's like, well, maybe that would mean that they're all running away from us. Maybe that means that they were all closer a long time ago. And so he formulates this idea. He called it the primeval atom, and it kind of languished because that was only really like the one piece of evidence for this claim that, you know, if everything's moving away from us, then it must have been in a smaller place in the past. But the idea wasn't really supported by any other evidence. There were other ideas that were more prominent. And then in the 60s, it took like 40 years. In the 60s, the cosmic microwave background radiation was detected, which was about 10 or 15 years after it was predicted if Lemaitre's idea was true. So Lemaitre produced this idea in the 40s, 50s. They predicted that if his idea was true, then we should see the cosmic microwave background radiation. And then in 1964, what's their name?
Wilson.
Wilson and I think Wilson's right, but I don't remember the other name. I used to know their names. Anyway, they discovered the CMB, which agreed
Yeah, due
with
to
the predictions
assumption.
that were made. So, no, not due to an assumption. They just discovered the CMB, and that agreed with the prediction that was made. That's how we do science, right?
I like that science. That's better.
That's how we came to the conclusion that the Big Bang happened.
Okay, and I'll agree with you that has more. I infer more prestige on someone looking at it in that sense.
Penzias and Wilson, that's who it was. Yeah, Penzias. Arnold Penzias, I think was his name, and then Frank Wilson. Anyway,
Penzias, yeah.
But so like that's how we do it. So I don't.
I see how it, but I just feel like when you have this thing is like the church lied to you. Okay, we have to come to a conclusion that church is man-made, right? Like it's someone wrote a book, but we also, when we look back at some things in science, in the science world, like what killed off the dinosaurs and all that kind of stuff, we do take some big leaps into generalizing. Okay, we need this and this and this to happen, and then yeah, our theory kind of makes sense, right?
If you examined the pieces of evidence for any of like these big claims that have been resolved, you know,
Is it
for
resolved?
things in the
What killed
past,
it- what killed off- what killed off the
yeah,
dinosaurs?
it was a meteor.
Guaranteed.
I mean, yeah, like so. There's some debate over whether maybe the dinosaurs were already like kind of on their way out. Like there was already like, you know, the things were changing, and then a meteor hit, and that was like the final straw. But yeah, the meteor is what did it. And there's also some evidence that like there were some like other things going on at the time that made it worse. But were it not for the meteor, the dinosaurs would not have died off the way that they did.
Oh, I'll look into that. Well, I feel like I enjoy
This was resolved in like the 80s or 90s or something like this.
these conversations because I bet you there are, like for you it's resolved, but I bet you there's competing theories out there that are not falsifiable yet.
There's always competing theories to everything. That doesn't make those competing theories like valid or worth consideration.
Because you did say last time that a black hole going 99. Can we talk about the whole Australia thing just quickly?
Yeah, if you want to. Did you have time
I
to think
feel
about
like
it?
I got a lot of slack in my DMs,
Yeah.
and a lot of people thought that I didn't think Australia existed, which was not the case. Correct?
I imagine that you think Australia exists, that you're very confident that it exists, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
which is reasonable.
You didn't want me to say certainty because I wasn't
which
there.
you shouldn't. Which you shouldn't say certainty, right?
So we agree on how I answer that. Correct? You would answer it the same way.
I would answer it exactly the same way.
Okay. I want to clear that up. And I do believe that a lot of your super chat people and the people in your community, they're here to protect you, right? So
No, they're here to support me, not protect me. I don't need protection.
Support and protect, right?
I mean, they don't really protect me. Like,
Do you think if you had lost the debate that they would say that you lost the debate?
Maybe not, but I don't know how that protects me. That's just supporting me.
Okay,
But that's neither here nor there. I mean, like, look, it's kind of meta, so like we should probably call it there. I do have a guest in the guest box.
Okay,
but thank you for being here, Daniel.
No problem. I'll be back again. Trust me.
All right.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Make sure to read some epistemology. I should have said that before I kicked you, but that's my bad. All right, let's read some super chats before we bring on our next guest. We have $3 from Gretchen with the Happy Boxing the Verts Day. By the way, if you guys didn't know, because of course you wouldn't know, Gretchen sent me, I don't know if she wants you to know this, Gretchen sent me a $100 holiday gift yesterday. Off stream, it wasn't for anything. It wasn't for anything, for any notification, but I just wanted to thank Gretchen for the gift. I appreciate it. And from Binary Ghosts with the $5, the universe is not a vacuum or electric, but is fluid. Source, it came to me in a dream. True. All right, let's bring up Sleepy. Sleepy,
Hello?
how's it going?
Good, and you?
I'm doing all right. How old do you think the Earth is?
I don't really know.
Hold on,
but
how old are you?
I'm almost 20.
What's your birth year?
2006.
Okay. You just have a young voice. That's fine. Okay, so you don't know how old the Earth is.
No, I think it's like 4 billion years old, roughly.
Well, then
But
you
I
agree.
don't think. Yeah, I don't think that your claim is what Scripture says. I'm Muslim.
I never made the
and it
claim
also
that that's what
says
Scripture says.
Your church lied to you about science.
Right. I didn't say Scripture lied to you about science.
Okay, yeah. But in the Quran it says that the universe was made in 6 days.
Mm-hmm.
But if you consider the ratios of it, it actually aligns with science, which I think is evidence for God.
Okay, that's cool, but it's not on topic, so I'm gonna let you go. Let's talk to Hirui. Hirui? Hirui, how's it going?
Thank God, I am fine. What about
I'm glad to hear it. I'm doing okay. How old do you think the Earth is?
couple of thousand of years? Like
Okay.
10 or 11?
Okay, couple of thousand years, 18 or 11, fine.
Yeah.
And why do you think that?
Because if science is true and evolution and all of that true, it's probably took more than billions of years. Like you are right, but I don't believe in that way. I believe a lot of things in science is right, and a lot of things are actually things I use daily life, but I don't believe that the all existence took billion of years, when the Bible said it took 6 days to create everything except in the seventh day to rest. I'm sorry, my English is bad.
That's fine. Look, so if I don't believe in the Bible, why should I believe that the Earth is 6,000 years, or that the Earth is only a few thousand years old?
Because you should believe in God in general. It's
But
not about
look,
a specific
whether or not I believe in the
religion.
Bible, whether or not I believe in the Bible, there's like loads of scientific evidence that the Earth is very, very, very old, on the order of billions of years old. So why should I throw that away when like we can just check it ourselves?
What is one of the like explanations that the Earth is incredibly old, for example?
So we can see the results of seasonal changes in Antarctic ice cores. So you just drill a big hole in Antarctica, you pull it out, and you can look at the layers of ice, and you'll see seasonal changes, and you can count them, and you see more than 100,000.
Okay, but when we say seasonal changes, what are we talking about exactly? Just
So there are seasonal
the-
changes in Antarctica. As a result of the temperature changing, you're going to see different kinds of ice present in the ice cores. You will see different thicknesses of those different kinds of ice because it's warmer in one period and it's colder in another period. You also see different amounts of snowfall, etc. You will also see different atmospheric composition of the gases that are trapped in the ice, by the way.
Okay, so and my reason of believing the 6 days of creation is that I believe that God made us all in His image, and I know you don't believe that probably, but I'm just saying I believe that. I wish you know that is the truth and you believe in it, and the reason that I believe the Bible is the same reason I believe in God, so that makes me literally told to believe in the Bible. That is the book given to me to understand what is happening in the world I'm living in, what are the laws, and what God wants us to do in this world. That book tells us everything, and it never lies. And it says that all things were created in 6 days, and there is no reason for me to say that is not true because of temperature changes in
But
ice.
there's a lot. That's not the only piece of evidence. Like,
Yes,
basically
I
all
know,
of the
I'm
evidence that
saying-
we have points to the Earth being very, very, very old, right? Like, we could also go look at the rate of sedimentation, right? So if you go look at the layers at which the layers of rock formation, those layers can be dated, and we can figure out how long it takes for those layers to form, and we can count the number of layers. We can also go look at even radiometric dating. You go look at how quickly, how long it takes for things to radioactively decay, and we can go figure out how long they have been radioactively decaying based off of, the kind of substance that it is. And you get to billions of years that way. We can go look at how long it takes for, well, this is another type of radioactive decay, but you can look at how long a certain piece of rock has been exposed to the air by looking at how many different kinds of radionuclides you get from space. Like, there's so many pieces of evidence. It's not just temperature changes in ice.
But is those evidences told to us, or did we see it? Like,
You can go look at it yourself.
How? Where?
Go to a university and study geology. Go to a university and study paleontology. Go to a university and study physics, and you will have the tools to do this yourself.
Okay, so let's say the Earth is billions of years old.
Mm-hmm.
What is like the reason you said your church lied to you? Like, what are you?
Well, if your church told you that,
I want to understand.
If your church told you that the Earth is thousands of years old, then your church lied to you.
Are we talking only about the Earth, like about creation?
Yes, about the age of the Earth, yeah.
But to tackle that matter, we need to go a little off topic. I don't want to go off topic, but we need to. We can't just talk about the reason why the Earth is this much old. In your own side, like your side have scientific proofs, and my side is belief. It's not about proofs.
It's not proof. You're right.
Yes, it's not proofs that are written down like in a scientific way or with measurements, but it is about belief, and
yeah. So why do you reject scientific evidence in favor of the lack of scientific evidence?
Because I know this is off topic, really off topic, but because I got into a coma for 3 days when I was a little kid, and God saved me from that, and I convert to God from that day on. And because I believe in the Bible, because I am a Christian, I need to believe in everything the Bible says. This might sound bad, but if you read the Bible, actually, you will see how many things that are good in it. And
do you eat pork?
No, I don't.
Okay. Do you mix fabrics?
What do you mean? Like,
so like
Ethiopia.
Yeah. So like there are certain kinds of fabrics that you're not supposed to mix according to the Bible.
What kind, for example?
Let me pull it up. So there's a verse. Let me see if I can pull up the actual verse. It's Leviticus 19:19. It says, "You shall keep my statutes. You shall not let your cattle breed with a different kind. You shall not sow your field with two kinds of seed, nor shall you wear a garment of cloth made of two kinds of materials." So you should look at your shirt and see, does it say 50% polyester, 50% cotton? Because if so, you're in violation of the law.
Okay, I didn't know that. It's great I know now. I will try to be as much as following of the rules of God. I never said I never sin, but of course you are right to question me about all of those things. Even though I don't eat pork, I do some sins I didn't know about.
Do you eat shellfish?
No, I don't eat those unallowed stuff.
Okay. Well, so do you mix cheese and meat?
No.
Okay, good. So you're sort of keeping kosher, which is good. And I'm proud of you for that. But clearly you're not keeping all of the laws because you didn't even know about this one.
Yeah, and that is the reason why Jesus Christ died for me. Imagine if all of my sins were unforgivable. I will be going to hell regardless I believe or not. This is the reason Jesus Christ died for me, and the reason I believe instead of proofs. And I think science is great in giving knowledge and proofs, but once it comes in a clash with the spiritual world, I need to choose one side, and I'm choosing always the spiritual one, because that is the one I got my proof on. I never saw those
It's
evidence
a
about
little
the earth.
confusing though. Do you know what a hyrax is? You might actually.
What does it say?
Okay, so you don't know what hyrax is? Let me show you what a hyrax is. You might actually be familiar if you said you're from Ethiopia. I think hyraxes are present in Ethiopia. I think. Yeah, they live including cliffs. Are you familiar with this kind of animal?
What type of animal? Is it a hairy one?
You can see it on the screen.
No, I can't. There is nothing on the screen.
Okay, it's like a small.
There is.
It's like a small animal. It's like it's like the size of a loaf of bread. It has, I don't know how else to describe it. It has small ears.
I saw it.
Okay, you saw it. Right,
There
right.
was
So
a delay.
yeah. So they're also called rock badgers. And there's a and famously they don't chew their own cud, right? They don't chew cud. They don't have the organs to do that properly. However, if you go look in the Bible, it explicitly says that they do. Because it looks like they chew cud, even though they don't actually chew cud, right? What they do is they'll sometimes like eat their own poop rather than eating their own, rather than throwing up their food and then re-eating it. And so, but if you go look in Leviticus, it explicitly says that the rock badger, the hyrax, is something that is forbidden to eat because it does not eat its own cud. Sorry, because it does. Yeah. Even though, let me pull up the verse, and then I can show you what I mean. Leviticus 11:3-8. Let's pull it up. Here we go. Hopefully you can see this. We can just use
I
the.
can't see it at the same time.
I'll read it for you. Everybody else can see it. So it says, and the rock badger. And the rock badger, because it chews the cud but does not part the hoof, it is unclean to you. So this is giving you the rules of what you can and can't eat, right? And as part of those rules, in order for you to be able to eat an animal, it must both A, chew its own cud, and B, have cloven hooves. So its toes have to look like this, right? But in Leviticus, it says the rock badger, which is another word for a hyrax. In other translations, it uses the word hyrax. It says it does chew its own cud, but it doesn't have a cloven foot, so you can't eat it. However, so this is making a factual claim that hyraxes chew their cud. However, hyraxes don't chew their cud. They were wrong. It's incorrect to say that a hyrax chews its own cud. So why did the Bible just get it wrong?
I will admit, I don't know why, but again, I won't go on the science side, even though apparently this is correct and fact. I am still on the belief side, and what I was trying to say about the Earth's age is because there are some evidence that are scientific, but I never saw them. I don't have the ability to see them or check them. Yes, you said go to university, but that is not a joke. That you can't just
It's
go
not a
to
joke, but also
university
your life
with
will
a
be better.
taxi.
I mean,
That
like
is
if you can make it
years
happen.
of studying, years.
No. So look, I understand that going to university is serious. Not everybody can afford it. It's not accessible to everybody. But it is true, if you go to university and you study a science like geology, like paleontology, like physics, your life will generally be better afterward anyway, so long as you pass and you finish the degree. And so like it'll make your life better, right? Like you'll be able to make more money, etc. And you will learn the tools necessary to answer these questions.
Okay, but it won't give me the answers for those questions, because if you said the Bible is wrong, and as you showed me, and if it is, that doesn't give me any way of to answer anything, even if I study and go to a university. If it is wrong, it's wrong. But I don't believe it's wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying uh, those questions you are asking me are just statements, and they are not questions. Why the Bible got it wrong, I don't know, and
Well,
why studying in a university would answer that.
look, so studying at a university won't answer. Well, okay, it depends on what you study. If you studied like the ancient Near East, then you probably would learn why the Bible got a lot of these things wrong, and you'd learn it's because it was written by people, and the people got it wrong because people can be wrong about things. But the reason why I brought up going to university for physics or geology or things like this is because you can learn the methods and the sciences that you would need in order to figure out the age of the Earth for yourself. And then you could come to your own conclusion. You wouldn't have to rely on something some guy wrote down.
Okay, I mean, if you can, don't be disrespectful and don't say some guy wrote it down.
I was talking about the
Holy
science,
Spirit.
the science that some guy wrote down. You don't have to believe the scientists. You can just do it yourself.
Okay, sorry. Anyways, I have a question for you. If
Mhm.
you believed in God, would you believe that the earth took shorter time to be created, like
No.
the 6 days? Even though you believed in God, and
There are
you
plenty of
believe in
people who
the
believe in
Bible.
God who also think that the Earth is 4.5 billion years old.
I mean, that doesn't really answer the question, because there are people who are, gay, but say they are Christian.
Yeah, so I would
and
just I
those
would figure out a
things
way. If I
clash.
believed in God, I would figure out a way to make my belief in God consistent with the scientific data. I wouldn't throw away the
I mean-
scientific data because that is, I'm sorry, like that's irresponsible and intellectually dishonest.
Some Christians believe that the 6 days were a way of saying God, in our beliefs, 1,000 of years are just one day for God. So this might be the way of God counting 6 days, but for us it is much more. This is like different belief systems people have in our religion, in Christianity. You could just see it on TikTok. There are so many people explaining it in their own philosophy.
Yes, what I'm saying is that
their
if I
own
believed in
ways.
God, I would not believe in the Bible literally. Because that would be in conflict with everything that we know about the way the world works.
But don't you think surviving to the next important internal life is more important than believing in science?
Nowhere. So, by the way,
in...
nowhere in the Bible does it say that you have to believe every word of the Bible is true. I mean, like if you're a Christian and you believe in the New Testament, you just have to believe that Jesus is the Messiah. You don't have to believe anything else, and you go to heaven.
No, it's not that in that way. First, you need to believe in Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, and you need to be baptized, and you need to be following God's rules. You can't just believe in Him, go to a
That's
church.
not what a lot of Christians say. But look, I'm not a Christian. I don't believe in God, so it's relevant for me.
But if you believe in God, my ideas will be clear more, because again, this is more about belief than studies and the numbers.
Right, then maybe you should not believe in God if that's what's required in your view.
But that is the whole point. Believing in God. You said the word yourself, believing in God, not understanding, not explaining the way God works. It is about believing. And one person said this before, and I will say it again. the Bible is more about believing than understanding. I don't understand why it said that animal doesn't chew or choose his own, whatever it said. But I believe more than I understand, or more than I try to understand, because
Okay.
if we try to understand everything, it is impossible to comprehend the universe itself, let alone the creator. So how can we try to understand God even though we don't
Look,
understand the full
Hirui,
system of
it looks like
what?
you're not interested in actually examining evidence, which means that there's not really a
Okay,
conversation to
let's-
be had. So I'm going to let you go, but thank you for being here. There's just not much to do there. Like, he just wasn't interested in comparing data, any of that stuff. All right, let's talk to Haley Rose. Haley Rose, how's it going? Oh, not here yet. All right, looks like Haley Rose is not connecting, and I should read super chats anyway, so let me read those really quick. We have 5 Canuck bucks from Garba Gaiman. Epistemic humility involves criticizing your own position regardless of which side the chat is on. Yeah, true. This is from Stowbird with the $5, a super chat for protection. Indeed. Gretchen sent $3.11. It was for $103.11. Be precise, Blitzy. Okay, fair enough. Sorry. Gretchen sent me $103.11 yesterday. Jack Snipes with the $2. Timu Thor is tripping. From Binary Ghosts with the $10. Thank you, Binary Ghosts. This guy doesn't believe in Santa, so really every super chat I give is actually a curse. One day soon, this Santa denier will have all that he values turned to coal. Santa wills it. I hope not. I like my things not being coal. And from Mustache Max sending 5 Dr. Blitz Debunks gift memberships. Thank you so much. So I should actually let people know. These gift memberships aren't for nothing. They're like $4 or $5 a month on YouTube. On Patreon, it's like $5 a month or something, and then on TikTok, it's like $5 or $6 a month or something like this. And if you get membership, you get A, access to emojis. These are emojis that are unique to the channel, which are fun and are sometimes relevant for the conversations. And B, you get access to my debate notes. My debate notes are, a work in progress. They basically, whenever I learn something new, I get a new piece of evidence, I hear a new argument or whatever, I add it to the notes and then I categorize it, and you could get access to those too if you want to, and it's just $5 a month or so. And they're ever changing, of course. Of course, don't do it if you need the money, but if you have thrown around money, why not support a streamer that you like? Anyway, from Binary Ghosts with the $5. All this stuff about the age of the earth is just rude. Personally, I think she doesn't look a day over 39 and still gets carded when buying alcohol. True. And from Man of Tomorrow with the $10. Imagine how selfish you gotta be to think someone being unalived over 2,000 years ago covers for the sins of random people across the planet. Yeah, it's a little bit confusing, isn't it? And from Amari's Joaquin, that's a name, with the $10, do we still have some of the trees that are older or they disappeared? We do have tree ring data that goes back like 14,000 years or something like this. I'd have to go find the source on that, but yeah, roughly what you can do is you can take trees and tree rings, and then you can sync them up with other tree rings from dead trees. So you take trees that are like alive or we know when they died, and you can count tree rings back for them. And then you can sync up those early tree rings of like the new trees with the late tree rings of older trees. So you can get like a continuous dendrochronology back like 14,000 years or something like this, which is really neat. All right, y'all, we are going to change topics because nobody can stay on topic anyway. Let's just be a little bit broader, huh? Open it up. All right, let's talk to Fading Thoughts. Fading Thoughts, how's it going?
I'm good.
Glad to hear it. Fading Thoughts, how old do you think the Earth is? Sorry, do you believe in a god? My brain was in the wrong place.
Yeah, I mean, if you still want to debate that, I can.
I mean, look, if you think that the Earth is 6,000 years old because you believe in a god, then I guess we can talk about that. But if you'd rather just talk about why you believe in a god, that's fine too.
Okay. I mean, well, I looked into uranium-235, and it's actually very unpredictable and very unreliable as well.
How do you figure? What's unpredictable about it?
So there can basically be contamination.
Contamination of what?
Let's see. So the what I heard is that different dating models, dating methods, they all disagree with each other, right? So if you use carbon dating,
hold on, it sounds like you're changing the topic, because it sounded like you said that uranium is unrelated or is unreliable. And if uranium is unreliable, then you and because of contamination, then why not just talk about that rather than bringing up some other carbon date or some other dating method?
Okay. So contamination is basically in the rocks and the soil.
Which rocks?
The crystals that they take that they do the stuff from.
Yeah, so what kind of contamination can happen?
I mean, just when they're taking their measurements and stuff, that's a highly precise measurement, right? And they're doing something that requires the precision of billions of years. I think that any mishap in the laboratory would kind of mess that up. So
what would you say what kind of crystals are we talking about here?
We're talking about the crystals forming underground is what I remember.
I'm pretty sure that's all of the crystals. Which kind of crystal? That's contaminated? I mean, like, clearly you've looked into this. I don't want people to think that you didn't look into it. So if you could just tell me, like, which crystals you looked into that were contaminated and what they were contaminated with, I'm sure that would assuage everybody's worries that you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so the crystals underground, when they form, like, some of them, like, I guess the way I heard of it was probably an analogy. Some green beads start turning into blue beads over time slowly. And some stay green, some turn blue. And the problem is that the uranium atoms, not all of them switch to lead atoms. Is that correct or not correct? Some stay as uranium atoms.
This was a question about contamination. So what are the crystals that are contaminated and what are they contaminated with?
I'm explaining it to you. Uranium.
Well, why don't you tell me what the crystal is? What kind of is it? Is it a quartz crystal?
I don't know.
Is it a salt crystal?
I mean,
what kind of crystal is it?
You know, so why don't you just tell me?
Well, look, I mean, you said that you looked into this and you said that, like, contamination is a thing. So I imagine.
I'm sure you look more into it. You can give me some.
Are you telling me that you don't know?
No, I looked into it enough to know that it's a load of baloney.
But you don't know what the crystal is called, which is like the quintessential thing it's like the first thing that you learn when looking into this.
No, it just said crystal. I mean, why does it matter what kind of crystal it is?
Because the kind of crystal it is, the kind of crystal it is tells you precisely what kind of contamination can happen. It sounds like you didn't actually look into this at all.
I mean, when you're reading, when you're reading something that's not in your industry, I would assume you're not going to go into the most scholarly level of it. I mean, I'm reading the layman's term.
Where'd you look?
Some science article.
Okay, maybe we can find it together.
Peer reviewed.
Do you remember what it's called? Do you remember who it's by? Do you remember maybe the title? I can pull it up.
No, I don't remember the title.
You don't remember the title? Do you remember what it was about? What website it was on?
So basically, I asked, why is uranium-235 unreliable? And it just gave me a whole spiel.
Okay, so you asked that to ChatGPT, is what happened.
I never said ChatGPT.
Did you use Gemini?
I mean, look. So
be honest, lying is a sin.
So basically, it gave me a very detailed response.
What did you use? Did you use ChatGPT, Gemini? What did you use? Grok?
I use Gemini, which is
Okay.
really good, actually.
You used Gemini, great, and then you asked how it's unreliable. And so it's going to give you things that are unreliable about it, even if they're not true.
That's not true. That's
It
not
absolutely is. Because
So-
if I went and I asked Gemini, how is uranium lead dating reliable, it would give me reasons, right? It will give you whatever you want to see.
Okay,
So
I
wait a
mean, I
minute,
can
just to be
open
clear, just to be clear, fading thoughts. Did you look at the sources it gave you?
that.
Like, did you read them?
No, I don't.
Then-
I'm not sure if ChatGPT does. I mean, Gemini does that.
So
I know ChatGPT does.
So fading thoughts, then why'd you say it was peer reviewed? Why'd you say it was an article? It wasn't either of those. Why'd you lie to me?
Okay, let me ask you this: is it not trained on what other people have said?
Yeah, and it can be trained on like blogs.
Sure, but who the hell is talking about uranium-235? I mean,
Plenty of people. Plenty of blogs talk about it because it's a hot topic with regards to creationists. The point is that you lied to me. It's not from an article. It's not from something peer reviewed. You lied to me, and
Technically,
lying
it
is
is.
a
I mean,
sin. No, you
when-
don't know
when-
that. You don't know where it's from. How can you say that it's technically from a peer reviewed article?
Okay. Can I just read out? I found the chat from like 2 months ago. Can I
Yeah,
just read out?
please.
Okay. So decay rates might have changed, and this is actually something.
Okay, what's the
This
source
is
for that
actually
claim?
one of the biggest points because
What's the source for the claim?
I'm going to ask it for sources here in a second, but
Okay,
I mean,
then
if
I'm not
you-
going to believe it until I have sources for these things.
So I mean, if you already know about uranium-235, why don't you just drop your rebuttal instead of asking for a
Oh,
source?
I mean, I'm happy to, but the point is I was first destroying your, what's it called? Your ethos. Because you don't actually know what you're talking about. You asked ChatGPT to tell you what you wanted to hear, or Gemini rather, to tell you what you wanted to hear, and then you didn't check the sources. You didn't check that these claims were true. You just believed them because it agreed with your beliefs. So that's why I was pressing you so hard. Now, the reason why this is super matter, the reason why this super matters is because the way that we do uranium lead dating is we look at zircon crystals, at least mostly. Zircon crystals are a fairly simple crystal. They're very, very strong, very temperature resistant, and they form at very, very high temperatures, right? They don't melt until you're like over 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, right? So zircon crystals are really, really hard. So once they solidify, it basically nothing's getting in or out, right? Now, before they solidify, when they're forming, the zircon crystal, which is made of a zirconium atom, a silicon atom, and 4 oxygen atoms, the zirconium atom can be swapped in with the uranium atom because the properties of the uranium atom and the properties of the zirconium atom are very similar. So the uranium atom can slot in the place of the zirconium atom. However, lead, which is the decay byproduct of uranium, is not the same atomically. It's not the same chemically, rather, as uranium or zircon is. So lead cannot slot into the slot where the zirconium was. And yet, when we go and look, and so during formation, what happens is you have a lot of zirconium atoms with zircon crystals, and then a few uranium atoms, and basically 0 lead atoms because the lead doesn't fit in the crystal structure.
That's an assumption.
That's chemistry. After the crystal
The
forms,
no lead is an assumption.
it's chemistry, not an assumption. After the crystal forms, you end up with basically pure uranium, just a little bit, but pure uranium inside a zircon crystal, and then you can look at how much lead is left over after it's been a long time, and you can infer from how much lead there is and how much uranium there is, how much uranium there was initially, and then you can infer how long it was since that crystal formed. That's why it's relevant that it's zircon crystals in particular, because zircon crystals filter out lead crystals during formation.
Okay, so even if there was even a small amount of lead initially, then all your calculations, I mean, the age could be like artificially old. Do you understand? So are we not making an assumption?
Do you have that? Well, so look, this is basic chemistry.
No.
It's just based on the electronegativity of the
I'm challenging
zircon
your
crystal.
claim. I don't need evidence.
Wait, no, I'm sorry. The evidence is that this is how chemistry works. These are the chemical properties of the zircon atom, or the zircon single cell rather.
But you can't claim that because
Sure you can.
you're
This
saying
this
that-
is basic chemistry. You can look up electronegativity of zirconium and of uranium.
Okay, let me ask you this. Have you ever observed a zircon crystal at its birth, right? At its initial state?
Sorry, what'd you ask?
Have you ever observed a zircon crystal?
We can make zircon crystals. This is like super well understood.
No, not
Are you asking-
artificial ones.
Yeah. Well, artificial ones are chemically identical to natural ones, right?
No.
They literally
look,
are.
So do
They
you know
literally
that our lab diamonds are
chemically identical?
to-
Yeah, they're solid. I mean, like you can.
No, see, that's where you're wrong.
No, I mean the point is.
Contamination.
Oh, okay. You're talking about so you can artificially contaminate things all you want. The point is we know the
No.
chemistry of zircon crystals. Absolutely, we do.
Listen, I'll explain it to you.
You'll explain it to me when you didn't even know what the crystal was called before you asked Gemini.
You've run this argument every day. I mean, I don't run it every
and
day.
you still don't understand it.
All right, listen. A lab-grown diamond is too pure. A natural diamond contains a signature, like a snapshot of the atmosphere at the time. Okay? Those particles in the air will be inside the diamond. So it's the same thing
That can
with
happen,
zircon.
yeah. No, but the reason why it's
it does
important that we
happen
can
every
the reason
time.
why we can check the reason why it's important that we can make zircon crystals in a lab is because it shows that we understand the chemistry of zircon crystals, namely that we understand what kinds of metals can slot into the zirconium slot. And apparently the metal has to match a +4 oxidation state of the zirconium, because that's the oxidation state that the zirconium atom has in a zircon crystal. And lead doesn't do that. Also, the lead atom is like, I think it's like too big. Like it just doesn't fit in there.
Too big to do what?
Like the atom's too big to fit into the slot where it needs to go.
Right. Okay. But you don't know if there was lead initially. That's
yeah, we
the
do. It's
biggest
chemistry.
problem.
This is chemistry.
Okay, you're not budging on this. So,
do you not understand? Look, do you think that it's possible? Do you think that like it's chemically possible that you can form like, I don't know.
You can't observe it at the moment of formation.
Do you think that it's chemically possible to form like, I don't know, what's a good example of something that's chemically impossible? Like helium, helium-2, like replace the helium. You know how water's H2O?
Yeah.
Okay, so the H stands for hydrogen. Do you think it's chemically possible to replace the hydrogens with heliums?
In water?
Yeah. Do you think that's chemically possible?
I'm sure some scientists could do it.
No, it's not chemically possible. No, that's impossible. That's chemically, like there are laws of chemistry, that's impossible.
Okay, so the bonding wouldn't work or something.
Yeah, it's the same reason why the bonding doesn't work for uranium fitting into a zircon crystal.
No, but we're talking about, tell me if this is right or wrong. Lead eventually ends up in a zircon crystal, right or wrong?
Yep. Right.
Okay. Here's the problem, and you're just not getting it. You don't know when that lead initially showed up.
We do, because we know how crystals form.
See, you're making an assumption again.
We know how crystals form. Do you think that we don't know? Do you think that crystals just like magically appeared and that we don't know how they got there?
Even when you make lab-grown zircon, they still can't observe exactly the moment when the lead comes in.
In lab-grown zircon, there is no lead, because lead doesn't form when zircon is crystal, or lead cannot contaminate when.
I caught you in
no,
the
you
trap.
didn't. So lead cannot enter during the crystallization process. It's not an assumption.
So this is why it's a problem for you now. So you just admitted that it's not completely a reproducible material, because you're not
zircon crystals,
reproducing all the same conditions.
We can make them in a lab.
Yeah, but you just said when they do it in a lab, there's no lead. But when you do it in real life,
lead doesn't enter the crystal, because it can't, because that's chemistry.
Hold on. When a zircon crystal forms, lead is essentially absent at the moment of formation.
Mm-hmm.
Any lead found inside an undisturbed zircon today is assumed to have appeared after crystallization.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm glad we agree. What's your next point?
Okay. I don't know why it's saying that. It was
Because that's true.
no. It in the previous thing, it said that it's an assumption, and that if there was any lead present, then the whole thing goes kaboom.
Yeah, so you asked Gemini to lie to you, and now it's having a hard time lying to you again.
Right, okay. All right, so let's see here. So UPB dating assumes nuclear decay rates have never changed. Decay rates are inferred, not historically measured. Extreme conditions, early Earth, cosmic radiation,
What are the sources for these claims?
supernovae, proximity are unknown.
What are the sources for these claims?
Well, okay, so let me ask you this. Decay rates are inferred, not historically measured. True or
They're not
false?
inferred. They're explicitly calculated from quantum mechanical observations.
Right. So when you calculate
not
something,
inferred.
you're inferring a result. Okay.
I mean, I guess it's true that you're inferring that 4 is greater than 3 when 2 plus 2 equals 4 and 2 plus 1 equals 3. That is an inference, true.
Well, that's not how. Okay, so do you know that the age of the Earth recently, the estimate changed?
I don't think that's true. Unless
Yeah,
by
it
recently
was-
you
it
mean
was
like 30
updated.
years ago.
30 years. Okay. So
That's not
math
recent.
has
I'm
always
only
been the
32.
same. Hold on. Math has always been the same.
Yeah, so what happened is we found older crystals.
No. We inferred. Our inference changed.
No, we
okay?
found older crystals, right? The decay rates didn't change. We found older crystals.
And so you're saying they found older crystals and applied the same exact math to the
Yep.
older crystal.
Yep.
Okay.
By the way, I think that this was closer to like 60 years ago or 50 years ago or something like this.
It's still pretty recent. I mean, you're saying the Earth is 4 billion years old.
By the way, uranium lead dating is started in the 50s. I don't know if you know that. Like we didn't start doing uranium lead dating until the 50s. I think the first case of doing it was in 1954.
And here's my other problem with that. That was literally like 75 years ago.
Yep.
Okay. So in 100 years, we might find some plutonium lead dating, and we find out that the Earth is 6 trillion years old. You guys don't know anything. I mean, it's a constant evolving process.
Do you have
of
any evidence for that
nonsense.
claim? Or is it just like a vibe for you that like, oh, well, science has been wrong before, so this time it's also wrong? Like, is that what we're doing? Is that like the low tier white belt style debating that we're doing?
You guys thought that Pluto was a planet. I mean, you thought that the Earth
by the way,
was.
Hold
thought
on. Do you
the
want to talk?
universe
You
was
really don't want to talk about that because you'll get destroyed there.
accelerating. You thought the universe was accelerating. You thought that
yeah, most people still do.
You thought there was a 10th planet. You thought that.
Wait, hold on. Do you want to talk about any of these things, or are you just going to try to gish gallop because you don't actually know what you're talking about?
Am I wrong? Do I need to?
Yes, you are
expand on
wrong
it?
about like all of these things. Yeah.
Did you not think that Pluto was a planet?
You realize that we don't understand. We weren't wrong about any properties of Pluto. We just changed what it meant to be a planet.
Is that so? That's not.
That's
the
literally
same as
what
when
happened.
People accuse the Bible of conforming to whatever's new, reinterpreting the Bible.
Well, yeah. So we like look. The designation of planet as opposed to large asteroid is an arbitrary one. It was just something that people decided on. And then we made some new discoveries about other things, not about Pluto, but about like other things like Sedna, and there's a few other like minor dwarf planets out there. We made a few discoveries about these things, and we're like, okay, so using the old notion of what a planet is, we're either going to have to add a lot of planets, or we just have to change what a planet is, and then Pluto gets kicked off the list. And so the International Astronomical Union decided, okay, well, rather than having 50 planets, we'll just have 8. So we just changed the definition. It was a classification thing. We didn't learn anything new about Pluto. We weren't
Look,
wrong about Pluto.
look, I don't care if I mean it was a laziness thing or whatever.
It's not a
You're
laziness thing.
still
This is an
you're
arbitrary
still wrong.
categorization thing. No. This wasn't even science. This is a human category. There's no science about whether or not Pluto's a planet or Pluto's not a planet. It's an arbitrary category.
So when I say Pluto is a planet, are you saying I'm not making a scientific error?
No,
in
you're
that
making a
statement?
category error in
Okay,
like the
so
not
all right,
category,
so Earth
not
is
not the usual category error
Earth
sense.
is 6 billion. Earth is
4.5.
6,000 years old.
Oh, now you're making a
Category
scientific
error.
error. No, that's a scientific error.
That's a category error.
No,
I'm
it's a
in the
scientific
Bible
error.
category. You're in the lab coat category.
No, I think you missed what I was saying. No, this is a scientific error. As so long as you and I understand a year to be the amount of time that it takes for the Earth to go around the sun, then you are making a scientific / observational error.
Okay.
Right.
So so one last thing. Well,
Yep,
actually,
what's your
let me-
third thing that you're going to be wrong about?
So also, yeah, even if we did all the dating methods, all of that nonsense,
Mhm.
and by the way, I forgot to bring this up earlier. Carbon dating produces a different result than uranium lead
Carbon dating isn't used to figure out the age of the Earth, so it doesn't produce any result about the age of the Earth, actually.
Hold on. Before uranium lead dating, what were they using?
They weren't using any kind of
We
radioactive
had a
dating.
figure before the 1950s. Where did that figure come from?
It was kind of ad hoc. So one of the figures that I have a good memory of, I think it was done in the 1910s or maybe early 1900s, was basically an estimate of how long it would take for the sun to burn out, assuming it was a fireball. How long would that sun last? With certain, given certain assumptions about the size of the sun and things like that. And so that was one way. Other ways were, that was one way that it was done. I think that was done by, what was his name? Lord Kelvin. There are other ways that were done a little bit earlier where they were like, assuming that we know the rate of weathering, how long does it take for like these geographic, like how long does it take for like, like Monument Valley? How long does it take for like these rock formations to form? And so then they would say, well, we know how long it takes for weathering to happen, so we're going to say that it's at least old enough for these rock formations to form. That's that kind of thing. These weren't particularly rigorous ways of determining the actual age of the Earth. Rather, they were kind of like ways of estimating the age of the Earth based off of what they thought was true. Now, it turns out the Earth or the sun isn't on fire, so any estimates about the Earth's age using the sun being on fire is incorrect. And it turns out that we understand weathering a lot better now than we did before. In particular, like we understand that tectonic plates can produce new rocks, and those new rocks can then be weathered and so on. So we understand things a lot better than we did now, or a lot better than we did before. And so that's why those results changed.
Doesn't mean anything, though. I mean, look, everything's
sure.
relative, right? In 1,000 years,
maybe
we're gonna be laughing at what we were thinking about some concepts today.
Wait, do you have a crystal ball? Can you tell the future?
Why do you need like why does everything have to be 100% fact? And
I don't even think that's like a 10% fact.
No, so my phrase
do you have
was,
any evidence at all that that's true?
My phrase was, in 1,000 years, there are plenty of things that we're gonna be laughing about how we think today, right? Scientifically,
yeah, probably they'll be laughing at us a lot for thinking that like, the Bible is a reliable source of information.
No. Scientifically, and I don't understand why that's
probably not a lot. No. There will absolutely be things that like at like the frontiers of scientific research, like about like what's at the core of a black hole and like, what happened at the Big Bang. Like these things, they'll be like, yeah, they were wrong. Absolutely. Well, I hope that they'll know the answer in 1,000 years rather than now. But very basic things like But very basic things like, things fall at roughly 9.8 meters per second squared when you drop them on Earth. That's been the same for 300 years, baby.
You don't even know how our shifting of thought of thinking would be. Maybe science goes in a whole new direction where the scientific method is unreliable. maybe a whole new bizarre concept of thinking comes out where you
That's
have
a whole
to.
bunch of what ifs to try to justify your Iron Age philosophy.
Well, I'm saying 1,000 years ago, they were pretty sure, right? They were pretty damn sure.
Oh,
And
about what? What were they sure about?
everything and everything, the same way that
I don't know
talk.
if they were. I don't know. I don't know if that's true.
Well, all right. Well, I'm
It
just
seems
about
like you're
done
kind of
here.
just going off of vibes here. So why don't you tell me about, look, if you're right, suppose you're right that science does change. Why should we then trust, like, the scribblings of Iron Age shepherds? Why is that more likely to be right than, like, the entire body of the scientific community?
Well, this is why, because you're not seeing it from my perspective. From my perspective, I'm seeing a group of people that are just scrambling to figure out the universe and always having to change and update and rewrite and all this stuff. And we're just over here and we're like, hey, we got the number already. We're chilling.
Yeah, and you've been
All
wrong for
the
2,000,
answers
or
are
you've been
right
wrong for
here.
2,000 years, right? Look,
No,
tell
but
me,
the thing
tell me
is-
what's a more reliable means of coming to true conclusions? Never changing your mind about anything, or when you get new information that contradicts your old beliefs, you change your mind to conform to the new information, which is a better way at coming to correct conclusions.
Look, I'm not an ignoramus, so I know like how it sounds when someone is religious and they're unwilling to change, but you're not understanding the power of faith. Okay? So if my book says that Earth is this many years old, I'm believing it, no questions asked, and I'll just see you guys scrambling to figure out an answer. You're gonna change in 100 years, you're gonna change in 1,000 years, and the scientists that come after you are gonna look at you like you were some primitive animal. I mean, that's just it. They're gonna be laughing that you were doing 1 + 1, your
Look,
little integrals and
I just
stuff,
don't understand, like,
and they're gonna be doing multi-dimensional 3D quadruplex calculations in their sleep, and you're over here doing 9.8 meters per second. I mean, physics 101. To me, that's just. I mean,
look, fading thoughts. I don't understand why you think it's ever a good epistemology. Do you know what epistemology is?
no.
Okay, epistemology is like the philosophy of knowledge. It's like how we come to knowledge, how we form conclusions, that kind of thing. Anyway, I don't ever think that it's like a good way to come to conclusions about the world around us by just sticking with your guns and never changing them, even in light of new data. That seems
It's just bliss,
irrational.
though. It's bliss.
Well, sure, it can be bliss. You're right. You may very well be like, you know, happy, but it doesn't make you right.
Okay. I'm going to end on this question. I feel like I've been up here too long, but
Okay.
I just want to ask you this. Do you feel anxious or annoyed or bothered that there are answers out there that we will discover, but you're just not in the right timeline for it? Does that make you a little bit bothered?
Well, I don't know if bothered's the right word. I definitely would like to know the answers to a lot of the questions I have, and I recognize that like I won't get the answers to all of them, or maybe I will. Who knows? But I'm not. It doesn't like keep me up at night. No.
Okay, I mean, I'm surprised you answered that way because I feel like most scientific people they're very annoyed that they know the answer will come soon by some scientists in the future, but they don't have it now. And I was just gonna say, Scripture gives you that assurance. You don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah, but it's wrong.
You-
So like, okay, sure, but then it's not the answer unless it's right.
Yeah, but there's
so you're
no
giving me a
difference.
wrong answer, which I don't like. I could give you the wrong answers to all of the questions I have.
And you think it's wrong, but honestly, the
Yeah,
only
so
thing
is all
you,
the evidence.
the only thing you scientists are doing is just chasing a new dopamine hit. I mean, a new thing comes out, blah, it's so exciting and new, and then the next one comes out and it replaces the old one. Why don't you just? I'm disciplined. I don't need dopamine hits every 5 years with a new discovery. Okay, so one thing comes out 2,000 years ago that's correct, by the way, and that's all we need.
You're like,
All right,
you know what?
I
I don't need any new television shows. I don't need any new movies. I'm gonna watch the show. I'm gonna watch I Love Lucy, and I'm gonna watch, you know what is that movie? That really racist movie from the 50s that was like the making of a nation or something. I'm gonna watch just those things, and I don't need anything new. That's what you sound like.
I mean, sure, man. I got to go to the store, but it was
Birth
nice
of a nation, that's what it
talking
is.
to
All right,
you.
well, thanks for being here, Fading Nation. Fading Nation, Fading Thoughts. Have a good one.
All right.
Take care. Oof. All right, we have some super chats, and we'll bring on our next guest. He's probably been watching Friends since it debuted. That's funny, though. All right, let's read some super chats, then we'll move on. From Tim Davidson with the $2, sounds like this guy's on crystal. I didn't hear that. He just sounds like a normal religious guy. Maybe a little bit more devout than normal, but like he just sounds like a regular religious guy. From Trevor Lebert with the 2 Canuck bucks, scientific method being ignored by every caller. Well, yeah, that's kind of the point. From Zach Petronoff with the $5, you weren't there at formation arguments go both ways. At least with lab-formed crystals, we have reproducible analogs to base our assumptions off of. Yeah, that's exactly it. And to be honest, like we can do the chemistry without doing lab-formed crystals. Like we know how chemistry works pretty well. From Git Stanfield with the $5, my layman understanding is that there is a constant decay rate of not just carbon, but uranium, potassium, and lead. Lead doesn't decay, but yes, the other things do. And from Brian Peck with the $5, my book can't change, so it's right. Science can change as data is accumulated, so it can't be more correct than my bats are birds book. That caller. Yeah, I just don't understand it. Like, why wouldn't you want to continually be updating your view as more information comes out? It just seems obvious. From Jack Fetter with the $5, one day you'll be wrong, and at that time, I think we can both agree, you see my point. Mic drop. I do see his point. I see your point too. From B from KC with the $5, you guys thought Pluto was a planet. Makes me question the intelligence of theists everywhere. Yeah, that was a weird thing. I mean, like, look, I understand if all you ever read was headlines that, like, Pluto no longer a planet, then you might think that, like, we learned something new about Pluto, but no, we just reclassified it. From Sean with the $2, order is established by creator. How do I join in? You have to join on TikTok, unfortunately, Sean. And from Garba Gaiman with the 2 Canuck bucks, his crystal ball has too many impurities. Oh yeah, that's why I can't predict the future. Good point. And $10 from Pat in the chat. Thank you so much, Pat. Dear caller, lead cannot be in the formation of zirconium. In those conditions, it's chemically impossible. The only way it's present is from the decay of uranium. Your incredulity is not an argument. Right, in fact, there's some relativistic corrections that make it so that lead cannot be a part of zircon crystals. So it's relativity all the way down, guys. All right, let's talk to Devin Bendel. What a name. I like that name. Devin, how's it going?
It's going well. How are you?
I'm doing A-okay, Devin. So, Devin, do you believe in a god?
I do.
Okay, cool. So, are you driving?
No, I just got out of the car. Sorry.
Okay, great. Yeah. So, Devin, what would be the best evidence that you could give me, or the best argument, perhaps, that the God that you believe in exists?
Yeah. Well, so I don't believe that the Earth is 6,000 years old. I think that there's also no proof of that in the Bible. The timeline starts after the Garden of Eden, so I don't even know why that argument gets brought up between Christians and science. But I say the best reason for believing in God is I believe everything has to come from somewhere. And either we get back to this point zero of the Big Bang,
you don't think
or
that.
you get to, why?
Because otherwise then you'd have to think that God comes from somewhere.
I think that other than God.
Okay,
right.
so...
Well, something has to come from nothing.
So what's
is it
the principle?
easier to say that something we don't understand, this is the principle. Is it easier to say that there is a being we don't understand that developed all of this information that we call life and existence? Or is it easier to say that it just poofed out of nothing?
Well, that's not really
because the Big Bang, we're literally saying it came out of nothing.
That's not what the Big Bang is. It's not either there's a God or the universe spontaneously appeared from nothing. Those aren't the only two options.
Okay, well, what would you say it is if it's not God that created the Big Bang?
I don't think the Big Bang was the beginning.
Okay, what do you think predated the Big Bang?
Inflation.
Okay, and what predated that inflation?
Inflation
Either way,
could have
we
been
come back to a
eternal.
0-point game. That's something.
No,
had to
inflation could have
create.
been eternal. It's called eternal
could-
inflation.
Okay, so you believe that inflation is eternal?
It's at least a viable model, right? It's something that people take seriously. I'm not 100% convinced by it, but it's at least like a possibility.
It's an equal possibility to me, that a God that we don't understand. We don't understand what forever even means, but that there's a being that we could call God that has existed forever and predated what we call existence. I think that
like,
actually makes more sense
why should
because
I
we have
believe that?
information.
Why should I think that that's like more plausible
because
than
it's
like,
a more viable.
then how is it more viable?
Because we are living and conscious beings.
I agree.
To me, it doesn't make much sense for there to be consciousness that existed and came about from absolutely nothing.
Well, there was never absolutely
not nothing, but inflation.
Why is it so surprising?
Right. I know, not in your understanding.
Why would it be
How do
so
we get to
surprising
become
that
conscious beings?
I mean, like, it seems like consciousness is something that could plausibly evolve.
What are we trying to understand? If
I don't know what that means.
If this is just a if this is, would you agree that consciousness is just understanding information that exists around us?
I'm not so sure. I would say that consciousness is an internal experience of something.
Okay,
I don't
that's
think it
fair
has
too.
really anything to do with like the external world or understanding.
That's fair. To me, that lies at the heart of my argument. It's just that I think that it is a much better explanation to say that because we are all experiencing this life and we're understanding new information on a daily basis, that there is a creator that set that in place. And I think it's hard to understand that all of this happened out of just pure circumstance. I'm not necessarily saying impossible, but I think it makes less sense than that there is some sort of plan to this, because it sure seems like to me, and I know this is circumstantial, so not really fair, but it sure seems like to me and mostly everybody else that we are living some sort of conscious experience and that we are understanding things. And that means there is something to understand, which means there's a creator that set this in place.
I don't think that follows. Like suppose it is the case that there is something to understand.
Which part?
The part that you go from
Right.
there is something to understand, therefore a creator. Like how do you go from there is something to understand to there is a creator? Like, for example, I could just like say that,
So if you read a book,
like there's
if you
math,
read a book-
like let's talk about math. Math does, like I don't think that
Fine.
I don't think it's probably not reasonable to say that math requires a creator, right? There's something to understand in math, but like you don't need like a god in order for math to be a thing.
And math is literally the layout of everything, so it's kind of difficult to put that into terms. But math is information that we are understanding, and so I do think that requires a creator. But what about a book? So if someone writes a book, or if there is a book,
but our
we
consciousness
are writing,
isn't just
reading
for
it and understanding it.
Our universe isn't a book, though, right? Our universe is like a whole bunch of stuff, and like what we do.
It's a bunch of information.
Well, that's debatable, by the way. Look, what I'm saying is that
Well, how could
our
it not be
consciousness-
information? Whether it's chemical information,
Part of
whether
the
it's
thing that we do with our consciousness is some of us look out into the world and try to figure out how the world works. Some of us don't do that. In fact, the majority of us don't do that.
Right.
And so it's just not clear that like because some people take their ability to process information, to have experiences, to think of thoughts, because people take that ability and they turn it towards the outside world, it doesn't therefore seem that it means the outside world must have been created for that purpose or something.
I guess that's fair. It doesn't necessarily. Do you not think that there's a higher likelihood that that's the case than that it is just some random set of material that we are understanding for no reason at all?
No, I don't think that it's
What
a
is
higher
the
likelihood
purpose?
at
What
all.
is meaning? Why?
I don't think that there is a cosmic
What is the
purpose.
purpose and meaning to life if there?
I don't think there is. I don't think that
Okay.
there's a cosmic purpose. I think that like as far as people are concerned, we set our own purposes, or maybe we inherit our purposes from our parents if they set a purpose for us, because maybe they're bad parents. But the point is like I don't think that there is a purpose built into the universe. So, you know, if that's the necessary predicate to convince me that a God is real, then like you have to try something else. Devin, you there?
Have a conversation about it, because
Devin, you I don't know what happened, but you disconnected for a sec. Yeah, I can hear you again.
Oh, my bad. So I feel like this puts us at like this is a hard part of the hard part to make it past this part of the conversation, because we have an institutional disagreement that I don't know can be proven either way. Like, if you don't believe that information is there for a purpose, and I do, like, I can't prove to you that information is there for a purpose. I believe that's what gives life meaning, and I think we all feel it and understand it. But if you disagree, now I don't really know how we can come together on this.
But I mean, like,
so feel free to ask me any question. But
surely, if the God exists, if it left behind, you know, evidence, surely it Surely it shouldn't be. Surely you shouldn't need to rely on. Surely you shouldn't need to rely on vibes. Like, I feel like the information has a purpose. You shouldn't need to rely on vibes in order to convince people that the evidence is there. I can't hear you again. Hello? Hello? Devin? Devin? He's not muting himself. He's not muted in the app. I think it's just his phone.
Respect your argument.
I couldn't hear any of that, by the way.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just saying that, like, I want to be respectful of your argument, so I'm saying feel instead of know. Like, but in my experience, if there is information to be understood, that is because the information was given to us with a purpose from a creator.
So,
and I can't think of any circumstance where that's not the case.
What do you mean by information?
I'm talking about our existence, like everything that we see around us.
Well, no. Can you like clarify
whether it's chemical information,
what the word information means to you?
To me, it's literally everything that we see around us. So whether if I'm looking out into the sky,
that doesn't help me, because then you're just not defining the word, right?
Well, I am defining the definition of the.
If I told you, if I used a word that you didn't understand,
words
how I was
are
using
information.
If I said the flumbus,
words are information, chemicals are information.
If I said that the flumbus is evidence of the plebe,
no, I understand that's a flaw. So I'm trying to
and I just told you it's everything. Like,
I get it.
That doesn't help anything.
No, I get it. No, I know. So instead of saying it's everything, I'll categorize it, because there's so many different things that we can categorize as information.
Can you give me a definition?
You have chemical information.
Don't give me examples. Can you give me a definition of what you mean by the word?
Let me think. Without looking it up,
yeah, like
information is.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Information is. Trying to do it without using circular reasoning. Information is different things that can be understood. Is different either. I don't know how to define it, to be honest. So what is the actual definition?
So the way that I think about it, and I don't have a definition in front of me, but the way that I think about it is that there's kind of two different ways that people use the word information. There's the way that people use information where they just say, like, it is the way something is. And so information is like a description of that way. So we would say that, like, you know, a crystal has information because it's like arranged in a particular way, right?
Correct.
On the other hand, there's the other kind of information where it's like something that has meaning, right? And, you know, like words are information in the sense that, like, it's not like things are like arranged in a particular way and it's just a description of the way that they are. When we say that a word contains information, what we mean is that reading a word conveys an idea, that there's some meaning assigned to that word. And so the way I see it,
really that's our way of understanding the information.
really,
Like
the
that's
way,
just categorizing the
way I see
information
it
in a
is
way
that
that's
there's-
understandable
is
to
that
us.
the way that I see it is that our universe is filled with information of the first kind, in the sense that things just are a certain way,
Right.
and the information is just a description of the way things are. And then there's information of the second kind that we make. We make lots of that. Like when we write a computer program, or when we write a book, or when we talk, we make lots of that information. But it's only the second kind of information that we usually associate with like requiring a creator or a mind. The first kind of information, there's no reason to think that it would require a mind or a creator.
That's from your perspective. I think that's the opposite.
Okay, so then why would you think that a thing
I think
just
the
being a
first
certain
part is
way
also-
requires a creator?
Well, make your distinction between the two different types of information. Why does one need a
already
creator
did.
and why does one not?
So there's
No, you didn't
there's
tell me the
kind of-
distinction as to why.
the
You just said that it does.
Well, no, I told you the distinction of what they were. Now you want an explanation as to why one requires a creator or not, which I can
Yeah,
give.
but you didn't say
I'm
why
going to-
one.
Okay, I will
didn't
give
say-
you that
yeah,
information.
yeah. So why?
Right. So the reason why the reason why the second needs a creator is, or some sort of intelligence, is because meaning is something that is granted by things with intelligence. Right? Like we ascribe meaning to words, we ascribe meaning to paintings or to symbols or whatever it might be. The former
So how
doesn't
does
have,
our lives have meaning
Please,
then?
hold on.
That's what I asked at the beginning.
The former example, the one where it's just like a description of the way things are, there's no meaning in that, right? There's no like built-in meaning. It's just like a purely one-to-one accounting of the thing. And so there's no need for an intelligence to ascribe meaning to it when the thing itself is equivalent to its description. There's no meaning ascription happening there. And so it just doesn't seem like it
So what
requires
if-
an intelligence in order for a thing to be a certain way.
What would you say the difference is if we broke it down? You got coding that was created by a coder, and the chemical makeup, which is really just a bunch of different variants of neutrons and electrons that exist all throughout the universe. What is the difference in those two things?
One
in
has
reality?
one
was created by a human, one was created by a god.
Are you going to let me answer your question?
Yeah, sorry.
So one has intended meaning, and the other apparently doesn't. Meaning that one is of the one is of the kind of the former, meaning it's just an arrangement of stuff.
Right.
The other is the latter, meaning that it was intentionally produced with meaning attached. Right? We don't have any reason to think that the protons and neutrons and electrons were intentionally produced with meaning attached. We do have reason to think that, like,
Except
a computer
for that they're
program.
there.
Please, we do have reason to think that a computer program was intentionally created with meaning attached, because you can just go ask the guy who did it, right? So like we have good reason to think that code is information of the second kind, and that protons, neutrons, and electrons, unless we have evidence to the contrary, is information of the first kind.
So okay, but if you're looking at a computer program and you don't know the creator of that program, you have no just we're in the same situation. You have no proof that there is a creator other than that it's been created and that you can understand it.
Well,
we are in the same circumstance when we look around us at all of the different chemical imbalances that exist. We see different amounts of information and we can understand it. That's why I can infer that there is a creator.
Look, so with regards to the computer programming thing, like, even if you don't know who wrote it, presumably you exist in society, and we, as a part of society, most people, or at least people in the West, and well, most people have access to technology anyway, they like know what computer code is, or at least they've like heard of it. They like know that this is a concept. And so they have this concept of computer code. So as long as they can recognize that the thing that they're looking at is computer code, they'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, that has a coder. It's based off of background information, not just based off of the computer code itself. Now, on the other hand, if I just gave you a random string of numbers, you wouldn't be able to tell whether that was like encoding some information, or like some intentional information, or if it was just a random string of numbers, right? So just by looking at it, you wouldn't be able to tell.
Correct.
So you need to know something else.
But
You
I
need to
would
know
be able
like
to
some
tell
background information about where it came from, for example.
But I would be able to tell that but the fact that you gave me a string of numbers, I would be able to tell that it was given to me by someone.
How?
Like how else would I have the string of numbers?
I mean, like, when I said give, I don't mean I'm literally handing it to you. I'm just saying, like, there is a string of numbers that you're made aware of.
How else could it get there?
They could be like
But
generated
that's the point of my argument.
they could be generated by like a random number generator that's like built on like lava lamps or something. Like,
I mean, but it still comes at the genesis of the argument still ends up as like, you have those string of numbers, which means they came from somewhere, which means they were created.
Yeah, they came in this case from a lava lamp, which is random.
Then the lava lamp's God. Like in this argument, like that's what I'm saying. It's to me, you have to do. To me, you have to do so. I know
the lava lamp's
but
not
to
a
me,
mind,
you
so
have
like
to do
it
so
can't.
much mental gymnastics just to make science work. Like, not that science doesn't work. I think science is the understanding of our universe, but I think it leaves out the part that it was created by a creator. I think they both work synergistically, and I don't necessarily understand why that's so hard. Like why that's so frustrating to people.
Well, because you're not really making an argument aside from just kind of vibes. That's why it's frustrating. Oh, where'd you go? I can't hear you when you're off the app, by the way. Just letting you know. Lava lamp died for my sins. That's a good one. Is this even live? Yeah. I don't know why you would think it's not. All right, I don't know where he went. We'll give him another 30 seconds or so, and then we'll call it there. All right, yeah, I think that we'll call it there. Well, Devin, it was lovely talking to you. Thank you so much for being here. But we got to call it there. All right, let's read some super chats. Oh, no, there are no super chats. Well, it was a quick call. Oh, no, there are some super chats. I lied. From Kamran Kermani with the $5. I hope that previous guest never votes. Well, look, if he doesn't vote, maybe that's convenient for us, maybe not. But I would never want to discourage anyone from voting. I wouldn't want to, lie to someone to encourage them to not vote or something. Because, everybody has the right to have their voice heard. I would just hope that they'd be more well informed. From Darth Vaden with the $5, is there any significance to the number 67 in the domain of physics? I understand it's a meme, but I'm genuinely curious. Also, how old are you? I'm 32. And as far as I know, there's no significance to that number. We have €2 from Ekipo. If you can't prove it, why do you believe it? Well, that's a problem, isn't it? Yeah, one should try to at least provide evidence for the claims, right? And we have $2 from Binary Ghosts. I've had close encounters of the third kind. Oh, spooky. I never have. I hope that I never do, because that sounds spooky. And from Binary Ghosts again with the $10, people who pine for there to be an inherent meaning to their own singular lives are not living in a meaningful way. Your life on its own has no meaning. It must mean something to others. Well, it can mean something to you. That's totally reasonable. But one would hope that they have, that you have meaning to other people too. And from Encifrium with the $2, Blitz, you're too damn nice for the internet. Look, my mama raised me right, okay? All right, let's bring on another guest. Let's talk to Hunter. Hunter, how's it going?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
I'm doing A-okay. Hunter, do you believe in a god?
I do.
Okay, and look, so I'm an atheist, so the question is, what's like the best evidence or argument that you might offer me so that I too could believe in your god?
Okay, well, that's a difficult ask. I don't know exactly how committed you are to your belief, but I think that the strongest evidence that I have seen is not exactly empirical, but the strongest evidence I have that convinces me that there is a God is just the complexity of really just everything. I think everything is so complex, and I think it's also, this might be kind of putting on display my intelligence, but I think everything is so complex and so hard to understand. I think that that could only come from a specific place, and I think that place is God.
So complexity.
Sure.
Do you have a reason to think that like complexity can't arise on its own?
I don't have a reason to believe it can arise on its own, but I would say that it is more likely to me that the complexity of the universe suggests a creator.
I mean, like the way I see it, I don't know. Do you drink coffee?
No.
Okay, well I do. If you imagine taking like a cup of hot coffee, and you know, a cup of milk or something, right? If you were to pour those two things together, through no fault of your own, you didn't do this intentionally, but those two liquids will swirl around each other and produce like the most complex and some of the most beautiful spirals you've ever seen. And that wasn't something that you like did intentionally. You didn't like try to create complexity, but you did it, but it happened anyway just because of the laws of physics. Which makes me think that like, look, if this kind of thing can happen in like a kitchen, why is it that like, I don't know, this can't happen to galaxies or to planets or to chemistry or to life?
I'd say that's reasonable. I'd say that's reasonable. But I would also like to say that in that situation where you pour the milk into the coffee and they swirl together and they become, you know, whatever's in that mug now, sure, that wasn't unintentional by you at that point. But I don't think that, gee, that's a good analogy. I think that you are right to point out that just the complexity in and of itself is not proof. But I would say it is evidence.
But if we agree that complexity can happen all on its own with no intention behind it, how could it be evidence? How could complexity be evidence for God when it's also entirely consistent without a God?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I think that the nature of the complexity as well, I think, is that it's a little bit more complex than milk and coffee swirling around in a cup. But I do like that analogy. But
I mean, like we could talk about like other naturally complex things. That's just something that, you know, we have access to, most people have access to in the kitchen, and so, you know, it's fairly intuitive.
I think that the two strongest points that the theist has for evidence of a creator is I guess the mystery of the creation of the universe and the mystery of inanimate matter becoming animate.
I mean, you are right that as it currently stands, those are the two remaining mysteries that science has not yet figured out. And so, yes, you are correct that those are the last vestiges of where a God the last vestiges of a gap that a God can hide in. But like, is that really? I mean, if I talked to you 300 years ago, you would have thought, well, you know, there's the mystery of the sun. How does it shine forever? And you would have said that was evidence. That was like the best evidence for a creator. And I'm like, I don't know. Do we really want to rely on our inability to solve these last two problems as the evidence for the God that you believe in?
To rely on those two solely, no, it's probably not. It's probably not a great strategy.
I mean, just historically, like, and you know, maybe, I don't know how old you are. Maybe you won't live long enough to see those questions get answered. Okay, so actually, you might see those questions get answered in your lifetime. But like, the point is if we just look historically, basically every other time that anybody has said, there's this thing in nature that must be explained by God because there is no explanation. Like literally every other time that's happened, we've come up with an explanation. So while it's not guaranteed, like the odds are not in your favor.
No, well, so I would say again, like you pointed out, to rely on those two topics solely, you know, to be your proof of God would be, to say the least, would be limiting, right, yourself. But I think that those two at least where I'm coming from, because I'm not, classically trained in mathematics or, physics or anything like that. So as far as I'm concerned, that's really my wheelhouse, so I can't come on here and say like, oh, well, I know how the universe was created, or I know what the formation of the early universe looked like, because I'm not a scientist. And I don't want to come off as disingenuous, like I'm
No, I
saying
appreciate
that.
it, and you're being like super reasonable. My point is, and for what it's worth, like, I'm not a biologist, right? I'm not a chemist.
Sure.
I know a little bit of biology. I know a little bit of chemistry just from what I've read. Like we all take high school chemistry, high school biology, and stuff like that. But like, I'm not an expert in those things. But I've done a little bit of reading, so I have some understanding there. But like, if you asked me, how is it that like the flagellum of a bacteria, like the little tail that they have, how is it that like what is the molecular accounting of how it is that tail spins in a circle? I wouldn't have any idea, but somebody knows. Yeah. And
Sure,
so
yeah.
like sure, if you don't know or if I don't know, that's fine, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a scientific explanation that exists.
Yeah, no, that's true. The just because you or I can't give an articulate like explanation of the thing doesn't mean it's not there. I would say though that brings up, I guess, another interesting thing too, I guess, that the theist would have is just exactly how, just to establish, are you like a materialist? What's your sort of understanding of materialism?
So I don't take the materialist view, because I think that, okay, it's unfortunate because this is how these usually go, but it depends on what you mean. If by materialist you mean that everything is material, then no, because like forces aren't material, but forces exist. Like the force of gravity is not like some material object that you can hold or that you can see, but it exists. If by materialist you mean like some sort of naturalist, where I think that like the only things that can do that can like have causes or have effects are like things that exist in the natural world, then perhaps that's probably like a more accurate description of my view. But yeah, I generally would never ascribe myself the label of materialist.
Okay, yeah, because that could be really tricky, as far as I understand, like, for example, like this piece of wood is made up of cells, and then those cells are made up of molecules, and those molecules are made up of atoms, and those atoms are made up of, neutrons and electrons and things like that. And it just goes, and it can, I guess, allegedly goes infinite, right? It becomes an infinite sort of.
It ends. As far as we can tell,
Okay.
it ends. It ends at quarks and leptons. So quarks are what makes up protons and neutrons, and leptons are electrons and other things.
Give me just 1 second. I will be right back.
Sure. By the way, y'all, we have a new meme god, and it's the lava lamp. Welcome back.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. And I did like that the lava lamp joke. That was pretty funny.
I mean, like, I don't know. I never heard that somebody would call a lava lamp a god, so.
Yeah, yeah. That's one of the things about, I've watched some of your lives before, and I've actually seen some of your videos on TikTok, and I enjoy it a lot. But one of the things I noticed very quickly was that you were a lot smarter than I am, and so I wanted to kind of have someone who's a lot smarter than me press me on my faith, and kind of, just see exactly where that would lead and see what that conversation would look like. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. Well, I appreciate you watching the videos. Hunter, is there anything else you want to talk about?
Other than those three topics, the mystery of the creation, I guess the mystery of consciousness and life, and maybe
Oh, you're cutting out, Hunter.
the mystery of materialism. I mean, really, those are really the only three.
I mean, so I'll just give a summary of my view.
Is it better now?
Not really. I'll just give a summary of my view. I think that I think that if you asked chemists, like organic chemists, they'd probably, at least a lot of them, think that. Can you hear me?
Is it back now?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay.
So I think that if you asked, like, there are people called origins of life researchers. These are like kind of chemists / biologists who like study how life could have formed naturally. I think that if you asked them, they'd probably tell you that we have a pretty good understanding of like roughly the kinds of things that could have happened that would have given rise to life in a natural way. And if you ask cosmologists, none of them agree with each other, of course. But they will all give you their pet theory of how the universe came to be, or maybe that the universe never had a beginning, for example, and so it's just always been, and they'll tell you how that works. And so, like, I don't know. I think that just because we don't have, like, it's not settled science, I don't think that means that necessarily leaves room for there being a God, right? Like, you know, maybe there is, but I would put money on, like, the origins of life researchers getting it right, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that, you know, again, like with my sort of limited understanding of biology and of science, I kind of have to outsource a lot of that to, you know, like people who know more than I do.
That's totally reasonable. I do the same thing too. Like, I could give you like a very loose account for like some of the processes needed for like life to arise naturally, but I outsource it to people who know better. But look, Hunter, I'm gonna let you go. But thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate you being respectful. Have a good one. All right, y'all. So, you know how I've been thinking about this for a while, and you know how you know, Justin has a pantheon. He has Doug. He has Sharon Stone. I think we need our own, and I think we found it because I love Lamp. I've been illuminated by the lava lamp. I think we found it, y'all. We'll have to make some emojis. Make this happen. I love Lamp, and Lamp loves me. It's just so good. It's so good. I have to use it. Enlightened by the lava lamp also works. You know, also, it checks out. The lava lamp was turned on and said, "Let there be light." Anyway, we'll figure it out. We'll figure out the memes. We'll figure out the meme phrases. we'll do it. All right, let's talk to Rosella.
Hello?
Rosella, how's it going?
Hi, yeah, I'm very well. How are you?
I'm doing A-okay. Rosella, do you believe in a god?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Okay, and what would you say is like the best argument that you could give me for the god that you believe in existing?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think my argument's gonna be pretty similar to the previous guests, right? I mean, I'm not the best at like articulating things, so you'll need to give me a second. But yeah, like the previous guest was talking about complexity, right? And you made the really valid point about, you know, complex things can arise without intention, right? But what I would point out in that circumstance of the coffee making, you know, a very beautiful spiral or whatever, like that still required a mind, right? Or at least it would seem to be the case that required a mind. So, you know, it required an entity to pour these two things
Rosella,
together.
just really quick, I have to ask, how old are you?
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm 19. I'm 20 in a few days.
Okay, well, happy soon-to-be birthday. I just got to check because, you know, everybody was like, she sounds young, and so anyway.
Yeah, sorry, I get that a lot, yeah.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, sorry. So, yeah, so what I was just pointing out is that it seems to be the case, right, that would still require an entity, a mind,
Well,
or an entity with a mind.
But it doesn't require intention, and that's the important point, that complexity doesn't require intention. Now, it happens to be the case that when you mix coffee and milk, sure, yeah, like there's a mind behind it because, you know, you're making the coffee or you're pouring the milk in. But like, there's no reason to think that you couldn't have like, I mean, just as an example, right? Imagine that you had a lava eruption take place. Surely doesn't require a mind, at least like naively it doesn't require a mind. It's just a thing that happens sometimes. You have a lava eruption and then the lava comes down and then it mixes with the water, and because of the mixing and the cooling, it swirls and it creates very fascinating and complex, like almost sculpture looking things. Well, that doesn't require a mind, and it's basically the same idea.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Yeah, no, that's very interesting. I mean, like, I don't want to like pry too much into your view, but I was just sort of curious, like, what is your standard of evidence when it comes to this?
For which kind of claim?
Yeah, for you know, like believing in God.
I mean, look, so there's a lot of different kinds of evidences that could be offered, and they'd either be, you know, stronger or weaker depending on the kind. So like, for example, archaeological evidence is I generally consider that pretty good. Like, for example, if somebody found like a blood stain of, if somebody found like the decayed remnants of a cross and found a blood stain on it and checked the blood and it only had 23 chromosomes, I might be Christian tomorrow. Like, if that actually happened, that'd be really compelling, like really compelling archaeological evidence. On the other hand, like if you're asking for like evidence of miracles, I'm going to be a lot more suspicious of them unless you have like, unless it's like recorded on video, right? Which is, you know, it's a little bit strange that a lot more miracles happened before we had video cameras, but that's setting that aside. If you're talking about like evidence from like some sort of like philosophical deductive argument, well, then you just have to produce an argument that has convincing premises that are, you know, pretty easy to understand, pretty easy to accept, that lead to the conclusion that you want to come to. If you have some other kind of evidence, like some sort of, I don't know, empirical evidence, like you ran an experiment and you saw some outcome that is not in agreement with the predictions and it leads you to conclude that God is real, then, you know, you'd have to get to a certain degree of probability that it's not a fluke. And I guess the kind of evidence would just depend on the kind of experiment that you're running. It really just depends.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's very interesting. No, that definitely answers my question. Yeah, I mean, I think that's everything. I mean, I think for me personally, like, my belief in God isn't necessarily something I can substantiate through like logic or reasoning, right? The reason I believe in God is just for my own comfort. And I think, you know, for me personally, it seems to be the case that this enhances my life. So even if I am just lying to myself.
Okay. I mean, like, look.
Sorry, I got a phone call, but
No, you're
yeah.
fine.
Oh no, go ahead. Sorry, I think you.
No, okay. So look, I'm not here to tell you that you shouldn't believe in God. If you want to believe in God because it makes your life better, as long as you don't oppress me, I don't care, really.
Yeah.
But like,
yeah, absolutely.
This is, if God is real, this is a really important thing to know, right? So running these lives is like, look, I want to hear the best arguments that people have, because if they're right, I want to hear them so that I can agree with them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I think that's everything though. Sorry. I know I'm not like the best guest. I'm not really like
You're fine.
This isn't really
You're
my
fine,
like
Rosella.
domain of debate, but yeah.
You're good.
Anyways, you
Well-
take care.
Likewise, take care.
Yeah. Bye.
Oh, cut you off before you left, but thank you for being here, Rosella. I do appreciate it. By the way, we have some super chats to read. From Ekipo with the €5, lava lamp is a god. These people are interesting. These people are inspirational is what it is. From Jack Fetter with the $5, my lava lamp told me to smoke a fat joint and put on Led Zeppelin 4. I didn't really trust it at the time, but now wonder if it may have known better. Look, when you look into a lava lamp, you see things, right? From Brian Peck with the $2, argument from irreducible credulity. That's funny. That's just a good line. From Brissinger Blaster with the $5, is there a quick way to explain truth tables? Ask Ian. Yeah. So truth tables it's basically a function. You have, depending on what you're testing, you either have 1, 2, 3, 4, however many predicates. And then you do something to those predicates. Either you combine them, or you negate them, or you take the union of them, whatever you do. And then you just ask what for all of the possible combinations of the, not predicates, I shouldn't say propositions, for all the combinations of your inputs, your A, your B, your C, your P, Q, R, S, whatever, let them be true and false in all possible combinations, and then look at what the output is. That's basically all they are. From Brian Peck with the $2, lava, Lord of Amplified Viscous Ascendancy. No, I don't think it's an acronym. From Gretchen with the $3.11, lava lamp, we bask in your glow. That's good. By the way, I did see a comment, and we're definitely adopting this. I've been looking for like the right label for like people who are members. It's the Illuminati. Obviously, it's the Illuminati, right? We're not gonna make it 100% because maybe we'll come up with a better option later. But like that is currently the front runner in the labeling of our group, right? Of the lava lamp religion. Like, it's just so good. From Binary Ghost with the $5, never heat a lava lamp on a stove. This is a dark and sinful act, and the price of that sin is death, because it will explode and glass will fly fast. I have done something similar. I have exploded a lava lamp before. From Kiyoko with the $5, do you know Cloudflare uses lava lamps in order to generate random encryption? Lava lamps protect us better than any version of God. I did know that, and that's actually why I used it as an example, because they're great at generating essentially random noise. From Jack Fetter with the $5, the lamp conforms to its containers but has no specific shape. There you go. By the way, I'm writing all of these down because they're gold. From Pat in the chat with the $5, considering he loves lamps, could Brick Tamland be a disciple in the holy house of the lava lamp? I think so. I think Brick is a valid disciple. Dr. Carla with the $5, does that make us Lavites? All hail the lava, hashtag praise the lava lamp. It's not, so I think Illuminati is better. But we'll work on the hashtags. The hashtags are definitely things that we'll need to work on, right? From Serial Dude with the $5, sorry, I didn't actually show the message. From Serial Dude with the $5, Leviticus. Oh, that's so good. Leviticus 25:44, and the law was given from the lamp to the people, don't own slaves, obviously, but I'm saying it just in case. Leviticus is so funny. And from Gretchen with the $3, lava lamp will send his son Nightlight to redeem us. Maybe. We'll work on it. We'll work on it. From Doubting Scotty with the $5, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. True. You guys are funny. You guys are funny. And then from Toe Phone Man with the $7.77. Thanks for the $7.77, bud. The Levatican. There you go. That's also good. That's also really good. We'll have to work on this. We'll make it work. We'll make it work. Devin wants royalties. I don't know, Devin. It was my idea. You just inspired it. And from Deep Blue Sea with the $5, if we are members of a lamp religion, moths need to be involved. That's a good point. All right, we'll add that to the list of just ideas, things to think about. All right, let's bring up our next guest. Let's bring up Interplanetary. It can't all be about the lamp, y'all. It is funny, though. Interplanetary, how's it going?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing A-okay, Interplanetary. So, Interplanetary, tell me, do you believe in God?
I do believe in God, but like not in a specific. I believe in a God. I don't believe in religion.
That's fine. So, what is the best argument you could offer me for this God that you believe in?
So, like, there it's like if you were in the woods and you've seen footprints of a bear, and you don't really see the bear, right?
Yep.
But you could see the footprints and say, hey, maybe there is something there. You might not even know what a bear is, but obviously something made the footprints. So, in that kind of vein of explanation, there are a few things, like if you look at the cosmological constants and, you take a look at all the things that are, like, I mean, I hate to use the term, but, that fine-tuning argument.
So, look, I don't think it's quite analogous, because when we see footprints in the snow, say, or, in the dirt or whatever, in the forest, and they're shaped a certain way, the reason why we're like, yes, a bear made these, is because we know what bears are. Like, we know what bears do.
Sure. I mean, I was just using that as an example. Like, any kind of footprint. It doesn't necessarily have to be a bear.
No, but my point is when we see footprints, we're like, okay, well, we know what animals are. We know how animals work. We know where footprints come from. We have an understanding of what footprints are to begin with. Now, the thing is if we just saw like a random imprinting of like something on the snow, for example, if we didn't recognize it as a footprint, we would have no idea that it came from an animal. We'd have no way to come to that come to that conclusion, right?
Sure.
So the issue is that with like fine tuning, for example, the issue is that we have no background knowledge that informs on our ability to understand the origins of the way the universe is. None of us have seen a universe be created. Not even a baby universe, not like our own. None of us have seen, like, we have no, like we, at best we have like hypotheses and like shower thoughts, maybe some guesses here and there.
Yeah.
So I don't think that we can use our observations to say, yes, it's likely to be a creator.
Well, I'm not saying it must be, but there are certain things. Yeah,
that's why I said likely.
There could be. Yeah.
But my point is we don't have the background knowledge to come to that conclusion, given that data.
Sure, but I mean, it also is very strange that things are the way they are across the universe, where atoms can exist. That everything wasn't annihilated in the Big Bang through.
Is it strange? Why is it strange?
I mean, I think life in general is strange. No, isn't existence in it and of itself a strange endeavor?
I don't think it's strange. I mean, in fact, I would say that the universe being anything other than the way it is would be strange, because
I mean,
in fact, everything seems very normal
for a reason, right?
Sorry,
absurdism exists for a reason, right? I mean, there are schools of thought that kind of show you that, hey, if you really do look at, like, for instance, we sit at a dinner table, we're sitting on chopped up logs, in front of our faces with little slices of animals and plant material in front of us. Like, there is this level of absurdism found in life, in and of itself.
I'm
it's
not
very
an absurdist.
strange.
I don't think it's strange at all. Like, I think that I think it would be strange if nothing existed, because I don't even know what that means.
Right. Well, then you wouldn't be able to think now, would you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, in fact, it seems kind of required that something exists.
Okay. How would you explain why that reasoning would exist?
Well, look.
Why does something need to exist?
I don't even think so. Suppose that something did not exist, that there were no somethings. Well, then you would have a different kind of something, which is nothing. It has properties, namely it has the properties of not being red, of not being blue, etc. It just seems like the notion of nothing is like incomprehensible and likely incoherent.
Sure, of course, to a conscious being, yeah, that's unfathomable.
Which is to say, I'm not even convinced that it's possible.
So, I mean, if you take that reasoning, then, I mean, how far back in time or space or, in universal consciousness do you have to go back until there was actually literally nothing?
I don't think that there was ever nothing.
Okay, so, like, can the universe be eternal?
Sure.
Okay, but wouldn't that have some kind of, like, causalities where if everything was eternal and our universe was eternal, wouldn't, like, time itself be kind of stretched beyond that, where nothing would really, be created? Because, I mean, eternity is like,
I don't follow.
Nonstop. It's like goes on and on, infinite, right?
Why would nothing have existed if the universe was eternal?
Well, I'm just saying, I mean, would our local universe be able to be the way it is if because, like, I mean, we're saying we have a beginning with the Big Bang, right?
Well, that's not really the beginning in the same way. That's like
beginning of our observable universe. No?
It's like saying, yeah, sure, you could say that, but like, yeah, so you could just have stuff before that,
right?
That goes on forever.
Okay, but like, then how would that work? What kind of evidence do we have of that? That
look, you weren't asking for evidence. You asked, could it go back forever? And I said,
sure.
I said, sure. Well, like, why not? Like, I'm not making the claim that it definitely does.
Right.
I'm just saying that, like, it's at least something that we should consider.
Yeah, I mean, and that is also true of the fact that maybe there could be a God that exists within the, network of what could be infinite or finite. Finite within our universe, infinite beyond our universe.
Well, I think that there's some issues with a God existing, though, right? Because, like, the way that I understand a God that's responsible for our universe is that it must be responsible for creating, like, space, time, and matter, all of those things, right?
Possibly.
Well, if it's not, then I just don't know what it means to be a god.
I mean, the first mover, the thing that set off the chain reaction of, life in and of itself, a prime consciousness.
Well, so did it create the universe or not?
I mean, see, I'm a person that tries to go after the truth, like whether there was an actual individual of God, but I mean, there are these pieces in the universe within life in it of itself that are hard to explain, without invoking something beyond our own consciousness.
Can you give me an
consciousness.
example?
Such as if you look how science, I don't know how much you believe in the multiverse theory or multiple universes throughout, maybe an infinite version of universes.
What's the example of the thing that we can't explain right now?
Well, if there are infinite universes, right, and within those infinity, then a god must exist, mathematically. If it's infinite, then there must be a universe where a god exists.
That doesn't follow, right? I mean, there's an infinite number of even numbers, but none of them are odd. Just because there's an infinity of something doesn't mean that everything happens in that infinity.
I mean, I guess. I mean, I don't know
so
what.
So if what you're saying, suppose for a moment that there is an infinite multiverse. Suppose that's true. If that's the case, if you want to then show that that implies that a god exists somewhere, you would have to then show that that god is possible, right?
Right.
Because in an infinite anything, the only things that show up are the things that are possible that can possibly show up there, so long as each element of that set is independently generated anyway.
Sure. I mean, within the scope of infinite, I mean, anything is possible, no?
No, I gave you an example. You have an infinite number of even numbers, but none of them are odd.
Right, but I mean, I'm talking about math is more of I guess it's not in our physical world, right?
Okay, here's another example. It doesn't matter how big our universe is, or if our universe is infinitely big, you still won't fall up on a planet. You'll always fall down.
Sure. I mean, the physical constants of the world, of our universe, we have.
My point is that just because something's infinite doesn't mean everything's possible.
Right. Okay. For instance, what about the monster group of numbers? You have right, but there are also many dimensions. Why would those many dimensions exist?
Can you explain to me what a group is?
Like the monster group of numbers?
just what a group is in general.
So when you're looking at, I guess, the mirrored function of an object, how does it go? It's kind of like how many points of intersection can you have where both sides are still, I guess, the same?
Is that a definition of a group?
A square would have two sides, right? Where you could split it evenly in half and both sides are still the same.
So is that a group or?
Well, I mean, that's what the group is kind of going, and it's mapping out all the shapes that have, I guess, mirrored sides, right?
So a group is a type of mathematical structure. It's not like a physical thing. Mathematical structures, you can talk about ways that you embed things. So for example, the monster group can be viewed as the symmetry group of a particularly high dimensional object. But that doesn't mean that high dimensional object exists. This is just a way of thinking about it.
Sure, but I mean, the fact that they've we have literally mapped out every single structure that can have in the monster group. I mean, they just because the monster group is such an interesting thing because it has so many dimensions to it. How many dimensions?
Well, to be clear, the dimension of the monster group, it's not like the dimension that you think of when you think of dimension. The dimension of the monster group is a mathematical thing that's related to it's related to embedding geometry and things like that. This is not like the monster group as a group, because it's a finite group, doesn't have a dimension by groups don't have a dimension, right? Now the monster group,
in the math, yeah.
The monster group, one of the ways that you can realize the monster group, the minimal way that you can realize the monster group, is by thinking of it as an object, or thinking of the monster group as representing the group of symmetries of a particular object in a particular dimension. But it's not really like built into the mathematical object.
Right, but at the same time, and how many dimensions are there? You know, in probably one of the largest. Sorry?
4. 1 of time, 3 of space.
Right, but like in the mathematic, like in the monster groups, you have objects that are in like multiple.
These are not real objects, though. Like
Sure,
they're concepts.
Right, they're concepts, but math has completed that group, right? How can you complete something?
I don't know what you mean by
finite?
completed the group. The group is like a single object, has elements. Those elements live in the object, has a lot of elements.
I mean, but they do exist in multiple dimensions.
They don't. I don't know what you mean by they exist.
The shape itself.
The shape doesn't exist. It's not like a real thing that exists anywhere.
So why is there a finite number?
Why is there a finite number of what?
Of groupings in the monster group.
It's just a finite group. It's a mathematical object. It's not like a thing that exists.
Right, but it's a mathematical, like it's on paper, sure, right? I mean, you know, it's like we have lots of things that we calculate on paper before we discover them. You know, Einstein.
No, this is not like a thing. This is not describing a thing that exists. The monster group, like, look, if I gave you a list of like 3 symbols, and then I told you how to compose them. So let's say I gave you the list E, F, and G. 3 symbols, and I told you E times F is F, E times G is G, F times G is let's say F times G is F. No, F times G is E, and G times G is F. If I gave you a list of relations like that, that forms a group. That's all a group is. It's like a list of objects and relations. The monster group is it's just a really like big example of that. With the list is a lot longer and the relations are a lot more complicated. But like it's not. It's not. It's not like a thing. The dimensions are not real.
It's not so much as a thing, but it right. But like they use dimensions to formulate this thing, right?
Not
like
even.
They use
That's
dimensions
just a way of
as
thinking about it.
Yeah, as an example of how to understand these monster groups.
Yeah.
Right, and they use dimensions, you know, to kind of say that. But
yeah,
I mean,
they're not spatial dimensions. These are not like dimensions of space, right?
Okay. Well, I mean, even if you look at something like string theory, which posits what, 10, 15 dimensions?
In string theory, there are 10 spatial dimensions.
Yeah, 10 spatial dimensions. So I
mean
10
total, 10 space-time dimensions, 9 spatial dimensions, 1 temporal
dimension. So I'm
dimension.
just saying, I mean, these are big.
Those are different from the dimensions that you have
in the monster
group.
Right. I mean, but these ideas exist, right? I mean, they're so massive.
Yeah, we don't really have any evidence to support that string theory, like any empirical evidence to support that string theory is true.
Right, exactly. We don't. But I mean, you know, but these things that we do discover, you know, they don't directly point to a god, but I mean, they point to something that's beyond what we have access to, or like well beyond what we have access to.
The monster group doesn't. String theory might.
Right. So, I mean, maybe me using the monster group was a bad example of what I was trying to kind of get across. But like, you know, if you can have all these spatial dimensions and you can have all these, you know, multiple universes, you know, where the math shows that it's possible, whether it is or not, that's another ball game. But I mean, you know, I can kind of take those and feel like, well, you know, if there's so many unknowns, you know, how can we say that there is no consciousness beyond these things? Another thing I find in nature as well is like,
hold on, you can't just ask that and then change topics.
Okay, fair enough.
Look, the way that we do physics is we come up with hypotheses, theories.
Right.
You might even call them guesses or whatever. And then we test them.
Yeah.
And if we can't test them, then maybe we examine them for theoretical virtue. So we examine like the structure of the mathematics that the theory predicts, and like we examine, you know, is this simple? Is it complicated? Does it make too many assumptions, etc. But that's very different from just saying, well, what if there's a universal consciousness? That's like a vibe. That's not a scientific thought.
Sure. I mean, okay. At the same time, it's like, you know, how did nature decide that red was that color that you should stay away from?
I love red. Why should I
Right,
stay away
but
from
sure,
red?
but like if you look at the natural world and you see, animals with red, hey, that's normally a warning.
Oh, I mean, I guess, but like, I don't know.
You know,
That's
was
probably,
there
you
was
could
there
probably ask an evolutionary biologist that question, and they'd probably give you an answer.
Sure, I'm just saying, it's like, that could be like another form of like, hey, there is like a conscious cue where nature itself decided that, hey, red is going to be the color where, we decide that that's going to be dangerous. That's going to be the wrong thing, right? And so we're, so animals can display these
So,
things.
assuming that there was a decision that was made, I think is a mistake. Right? Like, you can say that, like, there are ways that the world is without assuming that it involved a decision maker, right? There are, like, in some sense, there is randomness in the world, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, who's to say that it wasn't random? That basically something evolved a
Sure,
color
yeah,
that was
you could
bright,
say, hey, this is
and
this
it
is a
just was
completely
irrelevant.
random
It
thing.
was
Yeah.
irrelevant what the color was, as long as it was bright and noticeable.
Right, exactly. It could have been completely random, but I mean, it kind of fell on, bright colors, accented from
Well,
black
no, I mean,
colors to kind of,
it being bright is pretty easily explainable,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
Because
you
if it's bright, then it can be seen.
right.
But
Exactly.
my point is like, okay, so suppose that this is not something that has like a specific explanation for why red instead of green. All that means is that there was a random mutation that led to red, and that was effective.
Okay, and that's a very clinical way of looking at it as well. But I mean, if there is a conscious out there, there that could have been involved with it, a decision making. If there is a conscious in nature,
But why would we think that such a thing exists? That's the real question.
right? That's where God would possibly come into.
No,
right?
I'm
Now,
asking
I'm not
why
saying,
would you think that a God exists? That's the question.
Oh, I mean, no one's going to like the answer, but I mean, existence in and of itself, our conscious mind, the way that our universe and the way things
Isn't that where we
are
started?
very, very balanced. No, these are just the reasons of why I think there is like
Why should
a
I think that
consciousness
there is?
higher. Because I think that's pretty good evidence. That
Which
sure,
one
it might
is
not
pretty
be
good evidence?
Jesus. It might not be Jesus.
Which
but
one's pretty good evidence?
I mean, just these like little footprints that we see, these little ideas of maybe there's something greater than just random mutations within our DNA.
So
to
what's the
create
evidence?
life.
That like this is like a
Well,
thing?
everything from like our complex universe to the way everything works in harmony to the way that
in order to be
certain-
good evidence, shouldn't a piece of data be only explainable by the one hypothesis and not be explainable by alternatives?
I mean, well, it's just that we don't have any direct evidence of a god, right?
Okay, so do you have any
So the only
indirect
thing
evidence?
Yeah, so that's what I've been just
What do you
trying
mean
to
by
highlight.
well, but indirect evidence still isn't.
Of a
There's
god,
this
but-
thing that God explains, but also other things explain it too.
Sure,
Then it's not really particularly useful evidence. I don't even know if it's considered evidence, to be honest.
Sure. I mean, yeah, it's like it could almost fall into the God's the gap, right? It's like, hey,
That's
we don't have
exactly
any
what's happening.
Yeah, it's like we can't explain it now, so therefore it must
And
be.
by the way, a lot of the things that you brought up, we can explain now, or at least we can offer explanations.
Mm-hmm.
Like the origins of the universe, I can show you a book that has 25 different explanations for it. This book right here, 25 different explanations for where the universe came from and why it exists. Not a paid ad, just a good book. And so if you want an explanation for that, you don't need a god. There's 25 in there, right?
Sure. So now, if this universe was so like conducive of life and everything like that, I mean, would we see more of it, or do you think it's like because if there is a god, he only concentrates on us, kind of thing?
Well, to be clear, we've only like looked in like 2 other places besides Earth for life. We've only like really looked, right? We looked on the moon. There's nothing there. It's a dead world. It has no atmosphere. Then we looked on Mars, and it turns out we have pretty good evidence that there used to be life on Mars.
Yeah, didn't they just find microbes there?
Yeah,
like
well, they
fossilized
didn't.
microbes.
They found the fossilized remains of what a microbe would leave behind when it died, basically.
Okay.
At least that's the working hypothesis. Maybe there's another explanation, but that's as far as I can tell. Like that is It is strong evidence. It's not like
Right.
100% compelling, but like it is strong evidence. So, I mean, like, so suppose our universe is very, very conducive to life. Well, it seems like life might actually be pretty common. It's just the universe is big, so it's hard to find.
Sure, of course.
On the
You
other
got,
hand,
you know,
suppose life is rare. How would that make God more likely?
I mean, I guess it like the thing is like I could never prove, hey, this is the direct evidence of God. You know,
No, but I want something that makes God more likely than the alternative.
I mean,
that's what a piece of evidence should do, right?
Right. So like again, it's going to be very indirect, but like you know, you have certain like things like 80% of people on the planet do believe in a deity or a type of God, right? They do believe in something beyond themselves.
Sorry, I'm just showing this for the comments because somebody wanted to
Yeah,
know
yeah,
what it's
no
called.
worries.
It's called
No
Battle
worries.
of the Big Bang by Nieyesh F. Shorty and Phil Halper. Phil Halper has a YouTube channel, by the way. He's a really good science communicator. And he does these kinds of things. He does kind of more of the philosophy and science side of stuff. Anyway, sorry. You were saying 80% of people believe in God.
Do believe in a God.
Hey, I don't know if that's true.
I think,
but even if that is true, isn't that just an ad populum fallacy?
I'm sure, yes, you could definitely say that.
So like,
but like, right, I'm not. Again, I cannot provide you direct evidence.
I'm not asking for direct. Like, it doesn't have to be direct evidence. It can be indirect, whatever. I'm just asking for a piece of data that makes it more likely that God is real compared with God not being real. That makes God more likely to be real than not.
Right. So, like, I mean, there are a lot of unexplainable phenomena that do happen, right? You know, I mean, why do 80% of people believe in God? You know,
that's pretty easy to explain. Surely you know the answer, right?
Well, okay, why do you think so many people need a God? I mean, if you take away God, you know, what do you replace it with? Do you think the world would be better? Do you think it'd be worse?
I'm not making that claim. It may even be that people need that kind of belief. In fact, like we know that there are brain structures that are closely related to religious phenomena.
100%. I do think
that doesn't mean that the beliefs in the religious phenomena are true, right?
Sure. Right. It doesn't mean that it's true, but you know, there are things that can point towards, hey, maybe there's something.
No, it's
more
not even
to it than
evidence that
just-
it's true, right? A bunch of people believing something is not evidence that something is true.
I mean, yeah, right. That's not really the best evidence,
It's
right?
not really evidence at all, right?
Well, to some it might be.
Well, surely it shouldn't be, right?
I mean,
otherwise
you know, if
we would all still think that the Earth is flat.
Yeah, possibly, but that was done with a couple of sticks in ancient Rome, so.
I think it was Greece, but yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like
Greece,
before that, people still thought the Earth was flat, right?
Yeah.
So look. All I'm saying is that like, if you can present me with like a piece of evidence that is better explained by a God existing than by a God not existing, by some alternative means, then you'd have a piece of evidence. But I'm not sure if there is any of that.
Sure, and at the same time, I mean, you know, like, I know it's kind of like, well, you know, it's like, yeah, we're conscious, right? You know, we can't really explain consciousness, you know, I mean, and yeah, it sucks that it's like, oh, so therefore there's a God, right? I mean,
it's not really an argument, right?
Right, but I'm not saying like, you know, hey, there is this like, you know, magical being out there or anything like that. Like, I believe in something greater than ourselves, whatever that may be. I do believe that there is something beyond just our own consciousness, or maybe we come from like, because there are a few things like I have discussed with you that I believe that, you know, are enough of an evidence to say, hey, maybe there's a footprint of something greater than ourselves. Right, such as having multiple realities, multiple dimensions. You know, that's
our universe might be far larger and far more interesting than we think, but that doesn't mean like there's a God, right?
Sure.
And that's
Sure,
the
I'm
question.
trying to point out that maybe they're like, because I mean, if 10 spatial dimensions can exist, you know, what else can exist? You know,
That's not how that works, though. It's not like, oh well, if this crazy thing is true, then this other crazy thing must be possible. Like,
right.
That's not good reasoning.
Right, and then you know, I mean, again with the color, you know, within like our nature, how we use color, how, like, you know, how was that decided? Those types of things, you know, kind of led me to believe that there might be like this greater consciousness around us.
But if there's explanations for these phenomena that don't require it, wouldn't you be better off believing either A, that one of those explanations is correct, or B, that we just don't have a naturalistic explanation yet, but we will figure it out eventually.
Right,
Rather
yeah. I
than
mean, I
adding
don't.
something
I think.
additional to your rather than adding some extra object to your theory that is unlike anything else that you've ever had any sort of experience with, and that thing is just magical and it just solves all of the problems. Like, it just seems like we're adding a lot of stuff to our theory because we want answers to questions that we might not know the answer to.
Yeah, I mean, and that possibly might be it. You know, we're just searching for answers that make sense to us in the grand scheme of things, right? But like the fact that we're, as human beings, we're very, you know, open to the, you know, unexplained and to believe in certain things. Like, you know, I don't know if you'd call it naivety or just the way we were brought up in our different cultures around the world, but we all tend to lean towards, hey, we all kind of, you know, spiritually believe in something. And, you know, I think that in of itself is a good indicator that there might be something beyond that. Now, sure, that might not be the best evidence, but I would consider that at least some form of evidence.
I mean, if the alternative explanation is merely that it had evolutionary advantage to ascribe agency to things that we see in the natural world, then I think that might actually be a better explanation because it doesn't require believing in a god. It doesn't require adding some supernatural being to your metaphysics. But look, Interplanetary, I'm going to let you go because I have to end the live soon, and my stomach's still rumbling. But thank you so much for being here. I do appreciate it.
Thanks for taking the time and listening to my ramblings.
Yeah, of course. Take care.
Okay, bye.
All right, let's jot that down. All right, let's read some super chats. So we have from Marduk. This is so funny. Lavarus was raised from the dead. Thank you for the $5, Marduk. It's just funny. This is all just really funny. From Brian Peck with the $2, lava is the highest form of Doug completed trinity. I don't know what that means, but that's a good point. I mean, like, look, if you just make Doug hotter, it becomes lava. From Jamnik with the $2, I just want to say that I lava you all. From Gentleman Viking with the $2, Zoolander voice. What is this? A god for moths? By the way, that's a really good reference. Oh, young people might not get it. From Binary Ghosts with the $5, Moth U 1220. Blessed are the moths who strive to touch the light of lamp. From Tim Davidson with the $5. At my wake, everyone gets a stun gun. Last person standing inherits everything. That's A, good idea. B, well, wait a minute. Hold on. That kind of just rules out like the old people, right? Anyway, lava, it's so hot right now. From Atomics, the 5 gifted Dr. Blitz Debunk subs. By the way, just so you know, if you want to get access to my debate notes, if you want to get access to the emojis, and there will be, you know, more emojis coming, probably involving lava lamps, consider becoming a YouTube member or a Patreon person. Patron? And I'm working on getting it set up on TikTok because then you get access to all of those things. And it's like $4 or $5 a month, so consider it. It's worth doing, right? Oh, what was the title of the book? It's called Battle of the Big Bang. It's a good book. Okay, then we have 5 Canuck bucks from Garba Gaiman. Thank you. Lava means to wash in Spanish, I imagine. This is why Jesus was cool with people not washing their hands in Mark 7. He feared lava lamp. Lava means to wash. Got it. Written down. From Tim Davidson, in the beginning, there was light, and that light was the lava lamp turning on. The lava once cooled became Doug, the rock on which reality is built. Ooh, I like that. Here's the issue, though. Lava lamps don't have lava in them. This is an issue. We might have to workshop this. $5 from Jack Fetter. In the beginning, the lamp was cold and motionless, lacking form and purpose. There you go. Yeah, we could absolutely combine lore here. But look, so they are lava lamps, but there's no lava in the lava lamps. Maybe this is a Trinity thing. Because On the one hand, it's a lava lamp, so obviously it has lava in it. On the other hand, it's wax and not lava. I don't know. We'll have to work out the theology here. From Wise Gerbil with the $2. Globally, 40 scriptures, 20 higher spirits, 21 none. I don't know what that means. And from Stephen Clinard with the $2, red hot for lava. That one's good too. But it's got to be a lava lamp, right? I assumed it was a lamp as a concept. Anything that makes light is lamp. No. See, it's a lava lamp. That's a very specific thing. This is a lava lamp, right? If you don't know what a lava lamp is, it's this thing. Where is it? Here. It's this thing, y'all. These are lava lamps, right? If you haven't seen them before, that's what they are. And they're actually used to produce random number as random number generators, basically. At least Cloudflare used to do this. And from Tim Davidson with the $2, metaphysical lava lamps have actual lava. You know what? Metaphysical lava lamps can't be constrained by contingencies such as being made of wax. So, you know. Somebody asks, why would you call a book with 25 wild guesses great? Well, okay, so A, nothing here is a wild guess, right? This book is really kind of like a historical book mixed with a science book that's going over at least in the last 50 years or so, going over the major ideas in cosmology as to the origins or the causes of the Big Bang, what the evidence is for those, what would need to be true, what would need to not be true, what the theories are. Like these are not just like wild guesses. These are like well substantiated and generally like there's at least a fairly good contingency of physicists who actually take these ideas seriously. These aren't random guesses. They're hypotheses that we don't know which of these are right or if there's something else that's right that isn't in the book. And from Pat in the chat, we have faith. It's lava. Maybe it's like a transubstantiation thing? Like, it is wax, but when it's turned on, it embodies lava. Maybe it's something like that. Spiritually lava? I think the transubstantiation thing is the right way to go. From Monkey Bitness with the $5, our lamps are just a worship tool, a representation of the eternal lamp. There you go. It is really the warp of material that we represent with the lamp. I like that. It's like how some people wear a cross. That's good. But it's got to be an eternal lava lamp. It can't just be an eternal regular lamp. Now from Big with the $5, my grandma is a hard Christian. She often presses everyone that isn't on her side. I'm agnostic. What would you do in my situation if she pressed you? Look, with family, like, it depends. Do you want to get into an argument with your grandma? Because, like, if you want to get into an argument with your grandma, just read up, learn the arguments, go into Discord servers and practice. But, like, why get into an argument with your grandma? Like, what is this for? Like, it's your grandma. Just be chill. She's gonna give you chocolate. No need to argue with your grandma. I mean, like, you can, but, like, I don't know. Anyway, all right, y'all. I am starving, and yes, I will be thinking about this all weekend. We're gonna make a. This is going to be. There will be discussions about it in the Discord. Absolutely, this is gonna be a thing. But y'all, I am going to end the live here. Oh, Cash App. Thank you, Grandma Zana. Thank you. Thank you so much, because there are several Cash Apps that I need to read. And I almost missed them. So we have $25 from Sylvia for Babs, Blitz, and Evelyn. If you guys don't know, I call my wife Babs. Not because her name is Barbara, merely because of a really old meme that transitioned into a pet name. It's just a thing. I don't know why it happened, but it happened that way. And so Babs is my wife. But thank you so much, Sylvia, for the $25. I appreciate you. From Shay with the $20. For the faces you make give me life. Well, thank you so much, Shay. I try to give people life with my faces. That's what I'm here for, right? Here for that and for education. Educational purposes only, or something. And then from Granazana, thank you for reminding me, by the way. Otherwise, I would have missed it. Thank you for the $10 on Cash App, for you are lava'd. You guys are funny. You guys are really funny. Like, this is, it's a good meme. It's a good bit, right? And we got one more super chat and then we'll call it there. Oh, actually, let me let you know, before I read that, let me let you guys know how to get to the Discord server. The Discord server, just type in discord.gg/drblitz, Dr. Blitz, right? It'll take you to the Discord server. It's the easiest way to reach me. It's the easiest way to see announcements from the community, etc. So absolutely go there. We have a few more super chats and then I'm going to end it abruptly. So we have Encifrium with the $5. Mother Earth is a representative of the molten core, keeping us all in her embrace. Is the Earth just a lava lamp? The Earth is a lava lamp with a crusty exterior. That's what it is. And from Big C with the she's mean LOL for the $2. Thank you so much for being here.